We'll just give it a minute for everyone to get in from the line. As a reminder, please mute yourself. Again, please mute yourself unless you're presenting to the board or testifying. Good afternoon. This is the hearing before the Boston Cannabis Board. Today is Wednesday, May 12, 2021. This hearing is being conducted pursuant to certain temporary amendments to the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. This hearing will be recorded and will be posted to the City of Boston's website. Before I review procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Kathleen Joyce. I'm chair of the Boston Cannabis Board. And today I'm pleased to be joined by Commissioner Lisa Holmes, Commissioner Darlene Lombos, and Commissioner John Smith. Commissioner Alejandro St. Gian will not be joining us today.
Thank you. As a reminder, again, please mute yourself unless you're testifying or presenting to the board. I will call each item in the order it appears on the agenda, after which I will ask who will be presenting on behalf of the applicant or licensee. You will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to present. Our project manager, Jasmine Nguyen, will give you a reminder at the 4-minute mark and the 8-minute mark. You will be muted at 10 minutes. After the presentation, you will have questions from the chairwoman and the commissioner. Following the questions, we will take public testimony. Public testimony will begin with elected officials or their representatives, and after that, we will move to the general public. All testimony will be limited to 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, you will be muted. If you have additional testimony, you may submit that. The record will remain open until Tuesday, May 18th at 5 p.m. Again, written testimony is given equal weight as spoken testimony. Before we begin, I want to note that there are 2 items on the agenda that have requested a deferral to the next month. Item 3, Races on the Hill, LLC. The proposed license premise is 123 Terrace Street in Mission Hill. This applicant has requested a deferral to continue working with the community. Should they be placed on the next agenda, this will be renoticed and additional abutters notifications will be distributed. Any testimony that has been received by the board to date will be kept in the file and will be considered. We will not be hearing this item and will not be accepting testimony on this today. Item 6, Pure Oasis LLC, located proposed license premise is 535 Washington Street in Brighton. This applicant has also requested a deferral and will be rescheduled to a future hearing. Again, subsequent notice will be given of that hearing, and the applicant will be again required to flyer its abutters. Any testimony that has been received to date will be kept in the file and will be considered. This matter will not be heard today and no testimony will be heard. Calling item 1, Liberty Compassion, Inc. The license premise is 591 Albany Street. The license type is a medical cannabis dispensary license. The request is an application for a change of beneficial interest holder, change of officers, directors, and transfer of stock. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
It would be myself, Vin Giordano, who's the president of Affinity, doing Liberty Compassion, doing business as Affinity, and Dina Rollman is also on the call, who is the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for Green Thumb, who is the acquiring entity.
Great, thank you very much. And you will be given 5 minutes for the presentation.
Sure, thank you.
1 minute, I will share my screen and then we will begin. All right, please go ahead.
Great. All right, great. Thank you, Executive Secretary. Again, Vin Giordano. I am president of Affinity, Liberty Compassion, but we're also as Affinity, and we do business as Affinity. And on the call is Dina Rollman, who is Senior Vice President of the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at GTI. We are seeking a change of control, but I want to give you the current status, and then I'm going to go into what we're asking for, and then how Green Thumb operates, how we operate, and how they're very similar in that way. So very briefly, if you move to the next slide, yes, we had mentioned we're located at 591 Albany Street in the south end of Boston. We have been operating since the end of last year without incident, but we've actually been involved in this process for almost three years. We're very close relationships with the neighborhood and our residents in the neighborhood, as well as the whole South End community. We have 10 employees, and according to the Cannabis Commission guidelines, we're actually 100% diverse. It's not really a very busy store at this point. It's about 20 transactions a day. It's medical only, and we see that organic growth on a weekly basis. It grows a little bit, and we're totally fine with that. We're into this for the very long term, and I think you're going to see the same interest in Green Thumb is the same way. We have a very close working relationship with the Blackstone Franklin Neighborhood Association. We've talked to many members there, including their entire board. We briefed them on that, on the transition, and they were okay with it. There's no surprises. We've always worked very hard to be transparent. It's just the way that we are, and being collaborative is always a benefit rather than being closed off. We have an agreement where we provide some financial resources to the neighborhood association, but mostly provide community hours. So we do all of the things with them, and the team is very happy to do so. We also started a partnership with Cultivated, which is a jails to jobs program. We've just started this, and they're a fairly new organization, but it will require an intern coming into the store to learn the process, to really be exposed to things that they may not have an opportunity to do. And we seem to be very happy with that relationship. If you can go to the next page, please. So really what we're seeking, and I'm just going to read this directly so it's in the record. Affinity seeks approval for a change of beneficial interest holders to change the ultimate parent company of Affinity to Green Thumb Industries. And the key thing to remember here, it's really three things. A, that as you can see, really everything stays the same. So the way that we operate, our process, the brands, the people are all going to be there. It's not a swap. And the second thing is that we have been very closely related to the Blackstone Franklin Neighborhood Association, and that actually they've been in support of our efforts and don't see an issue here. And then thirdly is that Green Thumb is aligned with us in a way that we approach our where we do business. And by that I mean it's really three things. The first one, we've always tried to achieve this, is we have to be critical importance to have a positive customer experience. Good products, obviously, but the experience has to be good. In order to do that, there's a whole bunch of things you have to do, but most importantly, you have to be a good neighbor. You actually have to provide a safe working environment for your team, and you have to create or have little impact on the safety in any negative way in the neighborhood. And if you can see the letter here from the chief of police in Amherst, where Green Thumb operates a retail dispensary, they are approaching it the same way. So it's really a business interest and a philosophy that are aligned very much. If you go to the next slide.
You have a minute left.
So the next slide, just to close, that Green Thumb, as I had just said, the philosophies are the same. You know, I mean, if you treat your employees well, if you put a long-term commitment into the community, because there is so much time, energy, effort, and resources necessary to get this going, that you do the right things, the community will be appreciative and everything runs much more smoothly. And that's the conclusion. That is where we are. Thank you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the ability to come and present this to you.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions for the licensee?
I do. Are there any operational changes at this location?
No, there wouldn't be any operational changes. As I had said earlier, process, procedures, people all stay the same, and they all fall within the guidelines of the regulations.
And Green Thumb Industries is what people also call GTI, the Canadian company?
Yes.
Okay. I have no questions.
Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions?
Yes, just one. Thank you for your presentation. Are they at some point going to apply for a recreational license?
I can very quickly touch on that. From very, very beginning, that's always been a question of, are you going to go rec? Are you going to go rec? Are you going to go rec? And we were applying for our license originally with all of the presentations, all the neighborhood presentations that we did. At the time, it was always, I'm not going to say no, I'm not going to say yes at that time, because it was still new, it was still different, and it was kind of there was a lot of unknowns, particularly in the city. At this point, it's much more accepted. I would say that there is a roadmap that shows adult use, but we have to go through the same process just to be competitive and make the store viable. It's the same, as you all know, it's the same process with the community, and anything that we do on our adult use application would provide lots of opportunities for people to voice support as well as concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions?
Yes, and it's probably, I think it's a little bit connected to what Commissioner Smith just said. Is this change of directors, officers, and company, is this to facilitate expanding and having a bigger financial base for the business?
In part. So as you all know, that there's a consolidation that's taking place in this industry. The amount of resources necessary just to stay around for any period of time are outrageous. It's crazy. There really isn't a better way to put it. Excuse my very casual language about it. But in order to be competitive long-term, you have to seek alliances, and you have to be part of a bigger picture. It's a standard maturation that takes place in any growing industry. And our feeling is that, as there were many other suitors who had come calling, that Green Thumb presented both complementary business skills, business set, but also complementary footprint. They have facilities out in Western Mass. When they're at capacity with their production there, we are moving to fully utilize our Clinton, Mass processing and cultivation as well. So it is very complementary in our approach as well as our production. It's certainly always helpful to have critical mass with expertise and experience and financial resources. That's always the case. So in the short, I would say that's part of it, but not the only reason.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lambos, do you have any questions? No questions. Are there any individuals present who wish to testify, beginning with elected officials or their representatives? Are there any other individuals who wish to testify regarding this application? Seeing none, the board will take this under advisement. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you to the board. We appreciate the opportunity to come and present. I hope everybody.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, as a reminder for anyone who has joined, there are 2 applicants who have requested deferrals and will not be heard on today's agenda. The first is Races on the Hill, LLC, 123 Terrace Street, Mission Hill. And the second is Pure Oasis, LLC, 535 Washington Street, Brighton. Again, those applicants will be rescheduled, renoticed, and will not be heard at this agenda.
Leslie, could I ask you to take this opportunity to explain how we have 2 applications from the neighborhood on the same neighborhood on the agenda? Please explain for the record how we put this agenda together.
Absolutely. So every agenda for this board is based on the 1-to-1 equity to non-equity ratio. The deadline for a completed application is the last business day of the month, which in this case was Friday, April 30th. Any equity applicant with a completed application by the deadline would be placed on the next agenda item, and non-equity applicants are placed in the queue to be paired with an equity applicant based on their specific application date. Again, so that is 1-to-1. Presently, we have approximately 14 non-equity applicants in the queue at various states waiting to be paired with an equity applicant with application dates dating back to 2018. Each month, the Boston Cannabis Board staff emails applicants who may be included on the upcoming agenda, requesting supplemental information and providing a series of deadlines in order to be included on the agenda. Applicants for new licensees are placed on the agenda with the 1-to-1 equity. The exception to this is if there are any non-equity applicants previously paired that have requested a deferral. In that case, because they had already been paired, those applicants would be put at the top of the agenda. applications are voted on in the order that they appear on the agenda. So as is the case with today's agenda, if there are 2 applications within a half mile to be heard on the same agenda, if that first item is granted by the board, that vote then creates a buffer zone for the second item. And in order to vote on that second item, a buffer zone statement pursuant to the board's rules and regulations would be required. We actually had this happen at one of our first hearings in a different neighborhood where there were 2 items on the agenda, again, based on the dates of their application and their equity status, where one was granted, and then that created a buffer zone for the second. In that instance, that second application filed a buffer zone statement so that should it be necessary, it was there for the board's review. And in that instance, both of those applications were granted.
That's not exactly what I'm getting at. I think when we had sent out the notices to potential applicants on Friday, April 30th, there was even more people that were included on this agenda. And one of those applicants was able to notify us before we published the agenda that they wished to be deferred to June. So
Yeah.
they were never included on this, and the next person was able to be included on this agenda, which is different than the 2 notifications we got in the last 24 hours for deferrals. I want to make it clear to everyone here that this was done according to our rules and regulations. It just happens to be the order in which these applications are in the queue as to why we have 2 Charlestown applications on the same hearing.
Yes, correct. So this is completely based on the dates of the application. And again, we pair on a 1-to-1 ratio. So again, with that queue, this was simply based on the number of equity applicants that had completed applications and the number of non-equity applicants based on their dates that had completed applications and were prepared to proceed with this hearing date. And that is why these, again, it's not based on neighborhood. These were purely based on the dates of the applications and where in the queue they fell.
And we were not able to fill those 2 slots for the recently deferred applicants because we only heard about them in the last 24 hours and the other applicants hadn't been notified or hadn't met the other deadlines, correct?
Correct, and it would be a violation of the open meeting law to add anything within 48 hours.
Okay.
And that's why those 2 will be carried over to the start of the next agenda as opposed to being filled by other non-equity applicants in the queue.
Thank you.
Does anyone else on the board have questions about the scheduling? All right. Calling item 2, the Heritage Club LLC. The proposed license premise is 116 Cambridge Street in Charlestown. The license type is a recreational cannabis dispensary license. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday through Sunday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. This is an equity applicant. The date of initial application was November 19th, 2020. The date of filing with Inspectional Services was October 26, 2020, and the date of the community meeting was March 10th, 2021. Before we begin with the presentation, I will ask Attorney Taylor White to testify regarding the equity status.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was able to certify the Heritage Club LLC as an equity applicant through documentation provided by Ms. Adenike Nikki John. She is the 51% beneficial interest holder of the Heritage Club. She provided documentation that proved that she has been or has resided in an area of disproportionate impact as defined by the Cannabis Control Commission for at least 5 of the past 10 years. Ms. John submitted copies of residential leases and utility bills, which established that she resided in Boston, in an area of Boston that has been designated as an area of disproportionate impact from September 2013 through August 2015. Additionally, she provided a lease and utility bills for an address in Quincy, which as a community was designated as a community of disproportionate impact by the Cannabis Control Commission. And she resided there from August 2015 through December 2018. Additionally, Ms. John has self-identified as being Black, and she did provide her federal income tax return, which established that she is below 100% of the area median income. Are there any questions about the certification process?
I have no questions.
Please present on behalf. Again, please keep yourself muted unless you are presenting before the board or testifying. Who is present on behalf of the applicant?
Phil Silverman. Nikki John.
All right, just give me one moment. As a reminder, you will have 10 minutes for your presentation. Jasmine Nguyen will give you a notice at the 4-minute mark and the 8-minute mark.
And before we begin, I want to let everyone here on this hearing know that anyone who wishes to testify in support or favor of an application has 2 minutes to do so. We will be here all night. So there's no fear of retribution or of someone not being able to testify. So I want to make that clear for the record. Everyone who showed up today who wishes to testify in person may do so.
All right, and just give me one moment. Please begin with your presentation.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Phil Silverman from the law firm of Vicente Cedarberg here for the Heritage Club. The company's CEO, Nikki John, is here, as well as Sean Kelly of Vanass Associates, who can answer some questions about a traffic study that we did with respect to this project. You can skip to the next slide, please. As the board is aware, this applicant has been here before, so I'm going to be brief with the basics of the project. Next slide, please. As I said, Nikki John is the CEO of the company. The company is a Boston Equity Program applicant and a Cannabis Control Commission Social Equity Program participant. Next slide, please. Proposed site is 116 Cambridge Street. You might be familiar with the property. Next slide, please. Just another couple of different views of the property. It's a little off of Cambridge Street. Next slide, please. So the company is proposing a compliant state-of-the-art security system with interior and exterior cameras, perimeter alarms, panic and duress alarms, seed to sale inventory tracking system, a secured vault. It'll feature all of the required security components that the board is used to seeing in a state-compliant secure cannabis facility. Next slide, please. Facility is 0.2 miles from the Orange Line, and there are over 10 nearby bus lines. So from the standpoint of public transportation, we believe that the site is ideally located. Next slide, please. There are 11 on-site parking spaces that are reserved for customer only. There are another 12 spillover spaces at an adjacent parking lot that can be used during peak hours. The company is going to open for the first month as an appointment-only reservation system, which allows us to control the numbers of customers. That would be subject to our ability to later request a relaxation from that restriction after the business has had an opportunity to be integrated into the neighborhood. Next slide, please. The company will prevent nuisance behaviors at the facility through rigorous customer education. The company is going to insist that customers sign what we call a community norms agreement, stating that the customer understands there is no on-site consumption of the product sold, and there's no use in public, both within the neighborhood and beyond. The company is going to steadfastly monitor its premises with cameras and security personnel to ensure that this no on-site or public use requirement is adhered to. Next slide, please. So following the last meeting, the board suggested that there were several ways that my client could provide a better application. And my client took that advice to heart, and we sought to follow the board's advice and the advice of local leaders. So first, the board expressed the need for more information regarding ownership of the company. And we believe that we've provided some additional clarity there. Since the last time we've adjusted this, Nikki John is the sole owner of the company, 100% owner of the company. If we bring on additional investors or other persons who would have a beneficial interest in the company, we will be disclosing them to the board, and we would follow all necessary procedures to attain approval. Next slide, please. Next, the board wanted a traffic study. This has been the biggest issue to be addressed in this project. And quite frankly, any dispensary that is going to be operating in this area is going to face this question. We worked with the Boston Transportation Department, which commissioned a traffic study from Van Ass Associates. Sean Kelly is here later if you have additional questions about that study, but I'm just going to briefly explain the conclusion of that study was that the project will have no significant impact on vehicle delays or motor vehicle queuing in the area. I know that there's at least one critic of the project that wanted the study done in a slightly different way or at a different location. I can only respond by explaining that the city's transportation department told us the key intersections where the study should be done, and we relied on their expertise in that regard. And as I said, the results were very positive. Next slide, please. The study made recommendations regarding signage, site layout, and development of a transportation demand management plan, including subsidized public transportation for our employees, among other things. And we embrace the recommendations fully, and we intend to implement those recommendations without exception. I should also note that we've proposed what we call an opening day plan, which governs operations during the first month after sales commence. This is something that my firm has used with our clients all over the state to incorporate these businesses into the community. So we open under an appointment-only reservation system with parking attendants and police details. We operate that way until the public learns all about the facility, the hours of operation, how to access the facility, how to exit that facility. And then we consult with local authorities at a later date to effectuate a relaxation of that restriction as the facility and the community become attuned to one another. Next slide, please. Next, the board wanted additional community outreach from our company. We sent letters to abutters. We held virtual information sessions on December 9 and 15. We held several meetings with City Councilor Edwards. We held a community outreach meeting on March 10th. At that community outreach meeting, there were several representatives from the city there. And the message at that meeting from the neighbors and the abutters was that the neighborhood has concerns that its concerns are not being met or heard by the city. Let me assure you, we heard those concerns. And as a result, we're proposing donating 3% of our net profits to a Lost Village Community Trust Fund to amplify the neighborhood voices so that they will be heard more loudly and clearly in the future. Next slide, please.
3 minutes left.
Okay, I think we can skip this one to the next one, please. Now, the board wanted additional information regarding our positive impact plans. In addition to the Lost Community Trust, which I just mentioned, the company proposes a $150,000 annual real estate purchase down payment program for deserving persons. This is similar to programs proposed by several other groups seeking to operate in the city. I've heard a critic of the plans who doesn't believe that the company can achieve the goals for the program. With all due respect, I don't understand where that criticism comes from. My firm represents companies all over the country. We've reviewed hundreds of marijuana business plans. The notion that an efficiently operated compliant marijuana retailer can't afford to pay $150,000 a year or 3% of its net profits for these programs is simply not well-founded. So again, we're looking to be ambitious here. Is it possible we don't reach the goals in a given year? Perhaps, but that's not a reason to reject the plan. The client is an equity applicant and she plans to give back to the community and promote further equity. I would also mention that we have community leaders who are here. Dr. Robin Reed, who has a career in public health, serving underserved communities. Lori Lucien, who's worked with the Housing Unit of Greater Boston Legal Services. They're going to implement these plans. I would also note we have further plans to purchase at least 30% of our product from social equity and economic empower applicants and 30% from women-owned and women-led vendors. Next slide, please. We have a robust employment plan. We're offering good wages, comprehensive benefits, and we have the highest standards for diversity inclusion. I want to conclude by saying my client understands that it has its detractors. It has neighbors who need to be considered, consulted, and understood as the project proceeds. Nonetheless, we believe that a fair evaluation of the factors you will consider should result in a decision to grant an approval in this instance. On diversity and inclusion, the company's plan incorporates best industry practices and proposes a robust employment plan to meet its goals. As a social equity applicant, Ms. John is dedicating to setting the highest standard in the city in this area. In terms of community feedback and support, we've got 105 letters from Charlestown residents, 76 from the city of Boston, a letter of support from former Mayor Walsh, the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, and City Councilor Tito Jackson. On the other side, we have detractors. We've met with them at outreach, and they have longstanding concerns with traffic and congestion. But as the traffic study has shown, we're not negatively impacting that situation. I can't really understand, given that study, why the opposition remains, but I suspect that our neighbors are not big fans of adult use marijuana. We get that, okay? Marijuana, however, is legal in Massachusetts, it's legal in the city, and this property is properly zoned for the use. Aversion to the changing law is not a legitimate ground to deny an applicant an opportunity to build a business. To the extent that the neighbors feel the city isn't listening to their legitimate concerns about traffic and congestion, our trust proposes to provide funding to allow their voices to be heard. Again, location, safety, and security criteria beyond industry standards. Crime goes down in these areas. That's what the studies are showing. This will be a safe destination. And finally, I just want to note that my client, if she is allowed to proceed, she would be the first business wholly owned by a woman of color in Boston. And I think it is fair to say that in Boston, like many cities throughout the country, local politics have historically
Attorney Phil,
deterred.
that's your time, sorry.
All right.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have questions for the applicant?
I do, thank you. My questions have to do with the traffic study. I don't know if it's Attorney Silverman or somebody else in your team that can answer my questions. We also received supplemental materials from a neighbor with other traffic studies that we received, I think, last night. You mentioned, and the board is not aware of this, that, so you worked with BTD and you said somebody wanted it done in another area. Could someone elaborate what that means?
With that regard, there's just neighbors that raised the issue. Why didn't you do the study at this particular area? And we explained to them.
Which area?
What's that?
What area are they requesting? Can you explain that to those of us that are?
Nikki, why don't you go ahead?
So basically, when you're coming from Cambridge Street towards Somerville, more of the residential streets are up Brighton Street, and that one is a little bit further out than the 300-foot radius. So I had a call with Midori Morikawa, Leslie Hawkins, and Quinlan Loft, where we talked about covering some of those streets, and the suggestion was to not cover those. That was something that I had specifically requested, and the advice was to not cover those streets. And since I'm not the one who's funding this, and I'm not the expert, I really left that to the experts to advise on.
I'd like to add something. May I speak, please?
Sure, please identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Robin Reed. I'm a physician. I'm the safety advisor for the Heritage Club. So back in November, when traffic concerns were identified, the community was very specific about the fact that traffic at Sullivan Square backed up on Broadway, and some of those individuals would cut through the Lost Village to get to Cambridge Street. So I have emails which I'm going to submit that these specific questions about cut-through traffic and about their request to have resident-only access on those streets be addressed. Those emails are to Chris Osgood, who was then head of BTD, and to Bill Conroy, who was working in this area to begin with. There had been 3 studies in the last 4 years in that area, including studies specifically on those side streets.
Mm-hmm.
So they indicated that they didn't need to do another study for those side streets. They had the information they needed, and part of the response was being addressed in the casino grant. They did not find that traffic deserved to, that a one-way resident-only access was appropriate, and that they had discussed that with the community. I don't know if with the community or with the counselor's office or with ONS, but that had already been discussed. But they did find that there were some safety issues, curbing that would slow down traffic and other safety things that they were going to put in place. So they felt like it had been addressed, and that was the reason why they were not studying that area again.
And remind me who was that? That was Chris Osgood and who else?
Bill Conroy.
Okay.
And we invited Bill Conroy to come out to the community, and they did. They came and met with the community along with Kelly from the most recent traffic study. So that makes 4 traffic studies now in this area. And to answer the community directly. And the community asked questions. None of them asked about resident-only access. But they did have an opportunity to talk with him, and Bill Conroy promised to come back and to specifically address their concerns. But he wanted to make sure that he addressed the issue of the dispensary impact on the neighborhood. So that was the main focus. I believe it's Patrick Fandel, who at ONS now, who would be responsible for getting BTD back out for that second follow-up.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to clarify. This applicant was before us, Leslie, at what cannabis hearing? What month?
Just give me one moment and I can pull that up.
November 12th, I think.
November?
Yes, it was the November 12th hearing.
So this applicant was before the board in November. Since then, the applicant has gone out and had a traffic study done. They've had a community meeting on March 10th. And there was some info sessions in December. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Commissioner Lombos, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I was looking at your plan, and I just wanted to think through a little bit with the closing cost assistance program. Can you talk about the criteria, the selection criteria for who will get that, and how, and about the how the financial need will be demonstrated?
Yep. So similar to the process in place for the social equity program with the CCC and also with the BCB, we're going to have income restrictions. Having been in the industry for over 9 years, I felt like a AMI income restriction of 150 per household, 150% of AMI per household across the state. So it would be depending upon where the person decides to purchase. We're not going to limit them to Boston, but we are going to require that they've lived in Boston for at least a year, or that they've lived in an ADI for 5 of the last 10 years, similar to the program.
They live there and they can buy anywhere else outside the city.
Yeah, just because the whole goal is to get them into home ownership as that being the goal, not necessarily trying to tell them where that can be. The prices are changing all over. So what I've seen is a lot of my clients who I worked with and rented them places in the cities year after year are now moving out. So I don't want to limit people and say you have to find 700,000 to buy your first home.
And is it only home ownership, or is it rental assistance versus home ownership?
This is home ownership only.
Okay.
And that's so it should be about $7,000 to $10,000 per applicant that is certified to get these funds. That's about the cost of the average cost of closing.
Okay. And then on the loss values to 3%, is that off gross or net?
Net. And the reason that's net is just so that we can make sure no matter what, there's no excuses for not having it.
Okay. And last question for me is, you talked about the purchase of 30% of products from other social equity vendors as available and from woman-owned led vendors as available. Have you identified any of those vendors? Are you?
Yep. Yeah. So there are actually a few that I've actually been speaking to, and Coastal Cannabis is one of my favorites. They're an edibles company down in Wareham, Massachusetts. It's women-led and partially, I don't know if it's over 51% women-owned. But yeah, they are hopefully going to be opening up soon, and I've been in talks with them for a while. The other thing is, I know Boston's hashing out delivery, but the goal is obviously to allow any delivery companies that the city will allow to deliver for my business and not do anything exclusive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I did, although I do see some stuff in the presentation. I'm just a little The security program and your program for diversion, or what you have in your presentation, your diversion to youth is just pretty standard wording. And I just wanted to hear a little bit more intricate information about how you plan on doing both your security procedures and what your diversion procedures are for youth in the area.
Sure. So, security procedures are sort of standardized across the industry right now in terms of ID checks outside the building, in the security vestibule, and then again at point of sale. Going over to the diversion side, a lot of that is patient education. We will.
Just because it's standard across the industry doesn't mean you don't have to have a plan for it.
No, we do. I believe it's in the application materials, a substantial plan. But again, it's largely patient education based, and the appropriate labeling, making sure that all of the labeling on the materials may warn that the product is for use by people over the age of 21. The CCC has done an excellent job compared to the rest of the country, quite frankly, on these types of procedures, and we'll follow them to a T.
But that's what I mean. What do you have planned for your employees, your security team, your people who are going to be doing this? What is their plan? What is your individual plan? Not what the standard boilerplate plans are, but what are you going to do as a business besides follow what the law is?
Can I chime in?
Sure.
Please.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the one thing that I want to do different that I haven't really seen done across the industry is a lot of people call it bud tenders, and that's a play on bartenders. I don't know if you've seen people leaving bars, but they usually leave there not the same way they came. And I think my goal is to have all of my staff think of themselves as flight attendants. So when people come in, explaining to them, what is your seatbelt for? What's the flotation device? How do you exit safely? Because there will be emergencies, it happens. So getting everybody, I worked at the Apple store, and so they say anybody can be smart enough to build a computer, but not all the people that build a computer can sell it. So making sure we choose staff who are going to provide that level of customer service. Not everybody started smoking in high school or something. Some of these are people who are older, they need to learn how to use it, and they have kids in their home. So besides labeling, it's packaging that is adult friendly too, because I know some of these child-proof things can be really tricky to open, but making sure that they know where to store that safely. And it's not just a handout. I think it's a conversation when people come in. They're in line for a little bit, so we have opportunities to talk to them while they make their purchase.
And the company that you have listed, Safe and Sound Security LLC, are they local? Are they national? Who are they?
So they're out of Rhode Island, and they are a firm who kind of helped us outline where to put the cameras, buy our cameras on our own, or there's another company that is local that would do 24-hour surveillance for us. It's going to come down to the fact that they ask us to lease the equipment. We know what equipment we will have on site, and it will be the standard, if not better. But we're trying to figure out what the best fit is. And the other thing I'd like to do is look into a Black-owned consulting or a Black-owned security firm. So I'm working with Beckma on that, and they might touch on that later.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Before we move to public testimony, were there any additional questions from the chairwoman or commissioners? Chairwoman Joyce?
Just to piggyback on Commissioner Holmes's question, as far as the security, and I'm trying to get at how you're going to restrict access to people under 21. Are you going to be scanning IDs? Are you going to be doing a visual inspection?
Yes, so scanning IDs is at the front door, but you have to, when you get to the counter to purchase, show your ID again. And then at checkout, so there, the layout or the way it works is you come and make your order, and then you pick up the product after you've paid. So when you pick that up, you have to show your ID one more time. So at that point, it's just important that 3 different people have eyes on it. It's not just one person. It also will be scanned. And then as far as the in-building security, there's limited area access. So if you're not meant behind the counter, you can't access that.
The scanning of IDs is important. I come to this board with a licensing background, and we actually did our first inspections last week of the other cannabis establishments in the city, and there was one that stood out because that establishment had told us they were going to scan IDs. When they were first inspected, the IDs didn't work. The ID scanner didn't work, so they just decided not to use the scanners anymore. So I really want to emphasize how important that is to this board, that if the scanner doesn't work, the answer to that isn't just a visual inspection of it. So we take that very seriously.
Can I add one thing? I know there's multiple ways that people scan it. And so there's the physical scanner, and then sometimes I see people use their phones. We would have a physical device.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to public testimony. As a reminder, your testimony will be limited to 2 minutes when you are called upon. Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation, if any. We will begin with elected officials and their representatives, and then we will move to individuals who have signed up via the link that Jasmine Nguyen put in the chat. After we go through all of those individuals, I will unmute and ask anyone else if they would like to testify. Again, everyone who wishes to testify will be given an opportunity to. The limit will be till 2 minutes, and you also may submit supplemental written testimony until Tuesday of next week at 5 p.m. Are there any elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Patrick Fandel, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. There was a community meeting held on March 10th, 2021 via WebEx events, which was well attended by residents, community stakeholders, and representatives of local elected officials. The applicant completed all statutory requirements for notification prior to this meeting and has maintained continued outreach to community stakeholders throughout this process. The applicant has adequately demonstrated the operational plans for this site. Further, the applicant has worked with traffic consultants and representatives of the city to ensure that this application would not have an adverse impact on area streets. While we understand that there is both significant support and opposition on record regarding this proposal, the Mayor's Office would like to go on record in support and ask that the applicant continue to outreach to the community as they move through this process. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. Councillor Edwards, are you present? You wish to testify? Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, wanted to thank folks for coming out today. And I won't belabor the point. I've submitted a letter of opposition, which is consistent with my stance earlier and the last time that this applicant was before the board. The last time in opposition, I noted several things, but the crux of it, majority of it being that there was a lack of community support. And I still stand by that today. I have not, the last time, again, the community support was predominantly, if not overwhelmingly, form emails from some people in Charlestown and a significant amount of more people from outside of Charlestown who may be related to people in Charlestown, but don't live in Charlestown. Those were form emails. We discussed the quality of them, but they didn't actually express any real support. This time around, the applicant has been able to come back in front of the board, and the community support I have gotten none. By that, I mean I have gotten no residents from Charlestown who've written my office or who called me or text or anything to say that they support this application. We have gotten some support from outside of Charlestown. And again, I'm sure there are people who are related to folks who live in Charlestown who support, but again, those people who will be impacted by positively or negatively by this, and the people that I represent have not reached out in support of this particular application. I wanted to note, I did ask for additional details about the 3%, this housing program. I've been critical of it since the beginning. And I've been critical to the applicants, noting my own experience in working with housing, being the director of the Office of Housing Stability, being a legal services attorney in the Housing Unit for Greater Boston Legal Services, being on the Housing Committee, Housing Community Development Committee for the City Council, City of Boston, writing for statewide and city policy in all of housing. And this program, in asking for additional detail, we got a new name for it, but no actual breakdown of how this would work. And I hear today that it really amounts to a closing cost assistance, which if we're looking at streamlines or pipelines to home ownership, that is not the ultimate crux or the reason why people are not becoming homeowners. Also, I think I heard that the AMI is based off the state standards. And again, I would maybe want some more additional information as to why the state standards for AMI is the crux for the home ownership program. And I also heard that the home ownership program wasn't even going to be directed or concentrated in Charlestown, the community that this is supposedly in response to. So if it's not going to be specifically for those particular people in Charlestown, and by the way, people who did, again, I didn't hear from anybody, but I can assure you that I have not heard at all about this program as well, a desire or need or want for a dispensary to help with housing. And so I just am critical of the program. I still don't think the numbers make sense. I don't think the math makes sense. I think the goal is laudable, but it demonstrates there's a lack of expertise and understanding in how to build this program and how to actually make homeowners of Charlottetown. If that's not the goal, then there's no point in having this. I am critical of one point though, and I think, I didn't want to go into mischaracterizations, but I did want to address one of the slide decks that I saw while the proponent's attorney was speaking, and it actually involves me. So it says continued outreach to Councilor Lydia Edwards in November, December, January, February, March, and April. Councilor Edwards reported that she could not work collaboratively with the company per the advice of internal legal advice or legal counsel. I take issue with that because we had extensive conversations, me and Nikki personally, and then also with the attorneys, where we discussed many of the things and concerns and issues that I had. We discussed, Nikki and I, who she should be speaking with, who she could talk to. Nikki and I had these conversations. And so I think that does demonstrate a collaboration or at least willingness to work with the proponent. I made myself equally available to any other person who wanted to discuss this, their applications. And I take issue with this characterization. I also was not willing, if there was anyone I was not willing to discuss her application with, it was with Beckma and other people who were reaching out to my office, trying to figure out why I was taking the 45 days, which I'm legally allowed to do, or trying to figure out what I am trying to do on her behalf. I would not speak to them about her application or the Heritage Club's application. So I just take issue with that characterization. I've been approached by many people and at the most interesting times, including a funeral mass, but I have not been unwilling, I have not been inaccessible for collaboration. What the collaboration that the applicant wanted was for me to identify people in the community and to do the work for her. And I wasn't willing to do that. I did encourage her to do the work and go into the community and get support, to talk to people, to meet with them. Because I do believe in talking with her. Nikki is a wonderful woman and she's a kind person. And I've had that opportunity to meet her. And I think if more people met her, they would feel the same way. But that's the work that Nikki has to do in the community. And I have no community support demonstrating that work. So I want to be very clear. My job as a city councilor is not to help you get your application approved. That's not my job. My job is to reflect the needs, the concerns of this community. And I have, and I've done so transparently. And I just really take issue with this sense of that I wouldn't work with you because of legal advice. So my opposition continues to stand. I don't believe that this is the right location. I don't believe that this is actually going to be an enhancement for the community of Charlestown. And I also wanted to be clear, I don't think that the community benefits, one, were really asked for by the community, and I still don't believe they're fully baked. So at this point, I will continue my opposition to the Heritage Club's application.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify regarding this matter? Seeing none, we will move to public testimony. Again, we will begin with the list of individuals who have signed up online. Jasmine Nguyen also put that list in, that link in the chat. Again, we will make sure that everyone has the opportunity to testify. When you're called upon, please state your full name if you have not already and your address. Please limit your testimony to 2 minutes. Calling Maggie Supre.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So my name is Maggie Supre. I'm the former owner of the Heritage Club and a personal friend of Nikki's. I received a phone call yesterday from a colleague of Councilor Edwards and State Rep Dan Ryan, who warned me that if I say what I'm about to, There will be consequences, and I will jeopardize Heritage's chances at getting a license. It was a fear tactic in an effort to keep me from exposing the unethical behavior of the power players involved in this process. This process is supposed to be equitable and non-political. Sadly, that is not the case. For those who don't know, two groups are trying to operate dispensaries in Charlestown. One's led by Nikki John, a Black woman and equity applicant with no political connections. Her location offers 20 plus parking spots and is commercially zoned, yet she's been getting outward opposition from relevant government officials. The other group is R2, who is also on this docket. Their location offers no parking. It's on a rotary and it's not handicap accessible, but it's led by a group of well-connected political figures. Both Lydia and Dan issued them glowing letters of support. If you go ahead and you Google Lydia Edwards and Jack Kelly, the owner of R2, you'll clearly see that they're close personal friends, and he played a crucial role in her election results. Now I believe that the support she is giving him back is a scratch on the back in return. If you go to the OCPF website, you'll notice that Dot Joyce and Kevin Joyce, both owners of R2, made financial contributions to Lydia's campaign as this process has been ongoing, which to me feels like greasing of the political wheels. The journey for these two groups has not been the same. It took 4 months and 14 unanswered emails before Heritage was able to speak with Councillor Edwards, while R2 was given an opportunity to speak within just days of requesting a meeting, as confirmed by Ricardo Patron from Lydia's office in an October 30th phone call I had with him. This is the most blatant display of cronyism and political corruption that I have ever witnessed. It will not be ignored. As it stands, this process is political and equitable, and I believe that the board will act accordingly so that there will be change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Peggy Supre. Again, please state your address for the record.
Actually, before we move on, I just want to make it clear that Maggie Supre did contact the board with these allegations of corruption, lack of independence of the board, asked us to investigate, which we can't because we don't know who the person is that called her. But putting that aside, I want to make it clear for everyone that Charlestown voted, Ward 2 voted 59.32% to legalize the recreational marijuana on November 8th, 2016. This board has an obligation to cite more than 50 recreational cannabis licenses throughout the city of Boston.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
Could I just ask the chair to ask the public to?
Oh, Attorney Silverman, we're going to move on.
That's fine.
I don't want this to become a circus.
I don't either. That's what I'm asking is to ask the public to refrain and just talk about the merits or non-merits.
We're going to be here all night. All of the commissioners have devoted their entire afternoon and evening to hear every single person that wishes to testify. They will be given 2 minutes. I don't care how many people are here or what they want to say, but we will be here for that.
Appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Again, calling Peggy Supre, please state your address for the record.
341 Bunker Hill Street.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I want to thank you for taking my call. I would like to say that I had written a hand letter note to Councilwoman Lydia Edwards, and I support Nikki John 100% for that Heritage Club. She's a great person, and she deserves what every woman that we fought for to get where we are, and I believe she should get this job, this cannabis store, the Heritage Club. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Calling Patty Supre, please your address for the record. Is Patty?
Hi, my name is Patty Supre. I'm 341 Bunker Hill Street. Thank you for taking my call. I supported the Heritage Club and Nikki John back a couple of months ago. I do it now, and I'll do it in the future. There's nothing wrong with someone trying to make a business for themselves to support the community. And I think this is getting to be a political statement, which is not fair. The issue is at hand. The politicians can't really be involved in this. This is about a company that's going to do right by the company, and everybody should, take this into consideration. She's a Black woman trying to do good by the community, and this just can't be fair that people are putting her down. I have also written to Lydia Edwards' office and stated of my concern and my support for Lydia. And it seems to me that it's just getting to be a one-sided issue here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Calling it Chrissy Snyder. Please state your address for the record. Is Chrissy Snyder present?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Christina Snyder. I'm at 865 East 4th Street in South Boston. I just would like to show my support for Nikki in her proposal. I've navigated this whole journey while she's been going through this process, and I think she has done an incredible job. And I've attended all of her community meetings and her presentations, and they're always extremely thorough and well thought out and well planned. And I believe she answers all of the questions from the board extremely well with a lot of details, and it seems almost effortless when she's able to answer any of the concerns the board has, and even has new ideas for future cannabis openings in the city. So again, I just would like to show my support. I grew up in Boston. I've been here my entire life, and I continue to live here, and I will forever. And it's just so wonderful to see some change happening within the Charlestown community. And hopefully you guys make the right decision on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Calling Mary Supri. Please state your address for the record. Is Mary?
Hello?
Please state your
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please state your address for the record.
Mary Supri, South Boston.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to say what Nikki John as an equity applicant has gone through in this process is outrageous, but she has remained extremely respectful. Councilor Edwards has slandered her good name by publicly calling her lazy. She lowers applicant standards, and that she passed in for an application, something that Edwards called half-baked. However, all of you as a board said her presentation was thorough and her application complete. As a board, the biggest concern was traffic. You asked her to have a study. She had the study. Unfortunately, the community was not really thrilled with the results of it. However, she did as was asked. Nikki has written letters to the abutters. She's held online seminars. She's even discussed in public formulating a board to include community members to iron out some of the details of all those programs she has promised. She wants their input. Yet once again, Councilor Edwards tries to discredit her by posting an article in the Charlestown Bridge 1 week prior to this meeting today that she has done nothing that she was asked. That is absolutely not true. Now I have watched many of these cannabis meetings online, and I've never seen anyone have to jump through the hoop this very capable Black female equity applicant has had to. It's ridiculous. In my humble opinion, and having done some research, this is all about politics. Councilor Edwards writes a letter for support for cannabis to business a half a mile from where Nikki's business would be, located on one of the worst, and I repeat, worst traffic-ridden rotaries in the city with no parking. Yet the Heritage Club that has a standalone building with parking gets no support from Lydia Edwards. How does that make sense for the community in Charlestown? Again, only in my opinion. What does make sense is that if you look out Councilor Edwards' campaign fund, the donors, you will understand why they got the letter support and Nikki probably didn't. Why bother putting people like Nikki, who have grown up in the inner city, educated themselves?
That is 2 minutes. You can submit additional testimony in writing to the board. Calling Gabriel Camacho, please state your address for the record.
Gabriel Camacho. I'm the political director of United Food and Commercial Workers Local 1445. I live in Watertown, 243 Boylston Street. However, we represent thousands of workers in East Boston, Charlestown. You may know us as the face of Stop and Shop workers, Macy's workers, and etc. I would like to speak in favor of the applicant. One of the reasons why we are in favor of the applicant is because their commitment to racial equity and social justice. And that is an issue that is so dear to our union. Indeed, the only way to bring economic justice is to unionize workforce and the workforce. And Heritage Club has signed a labor peace agreement with UFCW 1445, which basically means that the workers will decide on their own whether to unionize without undue interference from the employer, and union organizers will be able to speak to workers on site. And we commit not to disparage nor take any job actions against the employer. We sincerely believe that the applicant is going to enhance the ability of people of color and underserved communities in upward mobility in the cannabis industry. I will end there. However, I need to add one thing personally. I know Counselor Edwards for many, many years. She's a friend. She is a valued ally to labor, to immigrant communities and people of color. I had no idea this issue was happening, and I hope there's a way that this can be resolved.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate the testimony. Calling Molly Griffiths. Please state your address for the record. Is Molly present? Calling Tracy Ballou. Is Tracy present?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Great, thank you. Tracy Ballou, 106 Granite Ave, Dorchester. I'm just calling to voice my support for Nikki and the Heritage Club. I've watched this process unfold over the last few months. When this process started, I was a Charlestown resident and only recently moved to Dorchester. Nikki has done everything asked of her, despite the fact that all of the cards have clearly been stacked against her. She's acted with integrity and grace in the face of unwarranted and unfounded opposition. And throughout it all, she has shown, that she is truly the type of leader, Black female leader that this city really needs. What is specifically troubling to me is the fact that certain critics are standing behind traffic issues as a way to attack the applicant, despite Nikki doing everything that's asked of her to get the traffic study and kind of deal with all the requests of the board. I'm curious to hear if those critics have the same opposition of the applicant that will be opening, or that is proposed to open up just a few blocks down the road. I thank the board for giving this application the fair evaluation that it deserves, and just want to voice my support on behalf of Nikki.
Thank you very much. Calling Samuel Gabrew.
Thank you very much, and thank you for pronouncing my last name correctly. Samuel Gebrew, I'm the Director of Policy and Public Affairs at BECMA, the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts. My personal address is 812 Memorial Drive in Cambridge, and our office is located at 1 Beacon Street in Boston. BECMA is a statewide organization. We represent over 2,000 Massachusetts-based firms that employ over 17,000 residents and generate a collective $1.9 billion annually into the state economy. And we are here today to strongly support the Heritage Club and Miss John in particular. I personally and other members of our organization have had numerous meetings with Miss John in the last few months. And in these meetings, I have found her to be brilliant. She's smart, she's passionate, respectful, persistent, professional, and really experienced when it comes to business and real estate. We urge this Cannabis Board, the Boston Cannabis Board, to approve her application. There are a few things that we want to mention in particular. She has conducted, obviously, a traffic study to ensure the project and permanent store would not create an unnecessary hindrance to the neighborhood. She has engaged in robust outreach to the Lost Village community and the broader Charlestown neighborhood. As was said earlier, she has over 100 letters of support from immediate people in the community, and then another roughly 100 letters from people in the city of Boston and beyond. She has a wonderful relationship with the building's landlord. She has made efforts to meet with locally elected officials and their staff to keep them informed. She is utilizing our business directory to establish relationships with Black-owned companies, and she has worked with the city of Boston, including OED and the BPDA, in this work. Finally, just on the point of Black women are the bedrock of the United States, and we should do absolutely everything we can to ensure that they are generating wealth and contributing positively to the community, as they always do. So we are really thrilled to support Nikki John and the Heritage Club. We have submitted testimony by email, and happy to answer any questions. Bye.
Thank you very much. Calling Emma Ferg. Please state your address for the record.
Hi there, Emma Ferg, 76 Myrtle Street. I am in support of Nikki John. Not only is it important to see women in business, but it is so important to see women of color lead in business. Nikki has an astounding amount of integrity. This woman is always going above and beyond. I've never seen a woman be able to connect to people the way that Nikki does. You leave every single interaction feeling like Nikki is like a part of you. She's just got this amazing way to reach out to people. She's organized. She crosses T's, dots I's. She's always trying to do things better. An amazing problem solver, and honestly, she's quick on her feet. She's one of the smartest women that I've ever met. I personally worked with her when I moved to Boston. She made me feel like this place was home. Not only did she find me my apartment, but she made sure that I felt safe and secure here, took me around to all of these different places, made me feel connected. It wasn't just a connection between her and I, it was a connection between myself and the people around me, and making sure that I knew where I was. Like, I can't say enough great things about Nikki and her character, and I 100% support her. She's going to do amazing things for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Ryan Wagner. Please state your address for the record.
Ryan Wagner, 1101 Worcester Road. I am testifying today in support of the applicant as well. And I'm by profession a financial advisor, and I know Nikki on a professional basis, and I've found her to be nothing but professional in every interaction. And I feel like she's handled the obstacles in this application process, which she knew would be many, very professionally, with grace, very resourcefully. Can't argue against that. And that the three major objections that have been stated, that it's the wrong location, I kind of question. This is my first interaction with everybody here, and I question because Nikki does real estate by profession. So I think the first rule of real estate is location, location, location. The next is that it doesn't benefit the community, and to which I would ask, what benefit are we looking for? And thirdly, the community support doesn't match the needs of the community. Well, a quick Google search will tell you that Charlestown has a median income of $89,000, 75% white, about 10% Black, and 10% Black income is going to be less than $89,000. As a financial professional, a mortgage payment for that type of income would be about $1,500 per month, the appropriate one. And if you can find a place to rent in Charlestown for $1,500 per month, then let me know, because I will move in. So expanding the impact of her community support to areas outside of Boston and Charlestown is extremely responsible from a financial perspective. And I wanted to just, I think there's been a lot of character support for Nikki, and I would like to echo that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Calling Alicia Phipps. Please state your address for the record. Is Alicia present?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I'm at 9 Pearson Ave in Somerville, Massachusetts. I am testifying in support of Nikki John. Nikki is polished, poised, professional, and well-respected and liked by many. Clearly, you can see there are 100+ people on this call to testify in support of her and her business endeavors. I've known Nikki for just about over a year now. She and I are part of a business networking group that is hosted in Charlestown. So she is here to support the growth of this city space. And she is the past president there. So I think that speaks volumes to who she is as a person and her ability to lead as well. I've always been impressed by Nikki. I'm clearly even more impressed by being on this call. She has answered every question, very polished, very poised. She's done thorough work on her business plan, and it seems very, very legitimate. I am here in support of Nikki and her business endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Nicole Hurst. Please state your address.
Hi, I am at 61 Warren Ave in Boston.
Go ahead.
Say I have been a resident of Boston for over 7 years and Greater Boston for my entire life. I'm speaking in support of the Heritage Club and Nikki John. I've known her professionally and personally for many years, and I can attest to her demonstrating the highest degree of integrity. She always holds herself and others to very high standards. She's competent, thorough, and more so actively involved in the community. She's put together such a thoughtful and effective plan and would be an incredible addition to the community. I really admire her commitment to giving back to the community in such impactful ways. And I think that educational seminars and down payment assistant programs are especially important. Since the last meeting, she's completed the traffic study, she's held seminars, and she always continues to answer any questions that come her way. I understand a big issue on this call seems to be that Nikki John or the Heritage Club seems to have a lack of support in Charlestown, but I would like to make a point that it's an equity applicant, and I thought part of the discussion was to give an opportunity to deserving equity applicants who can make a difference and give opportunities to the Black community. I mean, the current demographics of Charlestown, much have already been spoken as well. It's mostly white. So I'm not sure community support is the most important factor when we're discussing an equity applicant, especially being a Black woman in a space with few women owners. I'm, again, just speaking in support of Nikki John and the Heritage Club, and I know that she could really have the capacity to make a positive change in the town and stand in alignment with the town's goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Calling Chris Byrne. Please state your address for the record. Is Chris Byrne present? Calling Brendan Collins. Please state your address for the record.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, at 10 Parker Street in Charlestown in the Lost Village. I can just tell you that, I have not received a flyer or any outreach from Heritage. They say they have continued outreach in the Lost Village, and I don't think any of us have really received anything. Maybe at the very, very edge of Parker Street, where maybe it fits the 300 feet. We oppose this based on the traffic issues mainly. For me personally, that's really the only thing. I'm not anti-pot. I take offense to that. I voted to legalize it. I support equity in the industry. Honestly, I might even support this if it was at 31 Cambridge Street. It's just this spot is really bad for us and really dangerous based on the traffic issues that we've had. Seems like they picked this location because of ease of access to 93. They can avoid Sullivan, and they have a delivery service. So that significantly affects our residential streets. When we raised this, we felt we were completely belittled by this applicant. They just said, this is not a problem. That's not our problem. No one said, we'll help you fix it, even though they're saying they're going to try to help our community. And so it doesn't matter if it's a pot shop, a Trader Joe's, or anything else that's going to bring more cars into our streets. I would oppose that in that location. So I support the other one, the 31 Cambridge Street. So I'm not anti-pot. It's just this specific location. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Ashley Elsner. Please state your address. Is Ashley Elsner?
Yes. Hi. So I'm actually in San Jose, California. I am a member of the cannabis industry. I actually provide financial services. I'm the founder of Artery Pay. And I have worked in the cannabis industry for about 5 years now. I was actually incredibly impressed by Ms. John's approach to her proposal, and I wanted to speak in favor of it. Even though I am not a resident of Boston, we do business in Boston, and think that she is an exceptional applicant, and will do wonderful things for both Charlestown as well as the cannabis industry. I've heard a number of things that she has said that were, in my mind, answering questions in a way that was both direct and correct. It sounds to me like she's going to be following best practices for the cannabis industry, as well as actually elevating the discourse. And Artery Pay specifically, as well as myself, are in favor of providing more access to applicants who have been, traditionally excluded from business as well as the cannabis industry. So we wanted to speak very much in favor of Ms. John's application with Heritage Club, and just indicate our support as a member of the cannabis industry and as somebody who believes that Ms. John actually exemplifies the best possible ethics that you could have for the cannabis industry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Calling Elaine Donovan. Please state your address for the record. Is Elaine Donovan present?
How are you? 85 Russell Street in Charlestown. So first of all, I take offense to the woman that just spoke about Charlestown and everybody being white here talking. This is not about color, number one. I've opposed this particular shop first and foremost because of its size. It is astronomical in size. We don't have a cannabis shop in our neighborhood or anywhere close right now. The first one in 02129 has 12 or 13 bays, is going to have traffic here. Those were our issues. This was never about what color this woman is. A councilwoman just said that she was a wonderful girl, and then all of a sudden it turns around to be this back and forth political thing. I worked on the campaign for Lydia Edwards. Now this is all supposed to be doctored up against Lydia Edwards. Come on. Let's call this what it is. This particular place is much too large for this area, number one. It is nothing personal against this woman at all. I've been on every meeting. I've watched everything since the beginning here, and it doesn't fit this community, you guys. It does not fit 02129. Let me also say that you just had one caller from Charlestown in support. We just had someone call from as far as California, okay? None of these people are driving in our town, including the woman from California. This is going to affect the people in and around 02129 only, not the people in Boston, not the man from Watertown, certainly not the woman from California. Come on, guys, let's not make this mudslinging. That's not what it's about. Let's be bigger than that and be adults. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Ruthnie Benjamin. Please state your address.
Hi, my name is Ruthnie Benjamin. You guys can call me Trin. I live in 7 Fox Street, Dorchester, but I'm actually representing Your Green Package, which is a delivery service for marijuana in the city. I just sitting here listening to all this front opposition. I'm just going to tell you guys right now, whether it's a marijuana dispensary coming into your neighborhood or it's a Walmart, like there's going to be that traffic there. If Walmart comes in or something like that, or Trader Joe's, like somebody mentioned, they're not asking you any questions, and there's not going to be a hearing like this. They're just going to give their dollars, and that's it. I just want to say that in the United States, I looked up some facts. Excuse me. There are less than 4% of startups that are actually founded by Black women, and all the businesses that are founded by Black people in general, only 35% of them are women. In Massachusetts alone, 20% of the population is Black and Latino, but only 3% of Black and Latino people actually own businesses in Massachusetts. I think that Nikki John has an incredible business plan set up for herself, starting with just the community aspect to it, giving back to the community. We have like this upcoming generation, there's no way in hell we're going to be able to afford a home. So she's actually taking measures to be able to help the people of the community in that way. She's taken extra measures in terms of getting like the additional ID scanners that are, just foul proof. child safety packaging, just going above and beyond. She's going above and beyond the minimum wage, which is, I believe, 15 in the state. She's offering 16.70. She's offering just the ability to form a union. She's offering just a community trust fund. I think she's doing above and beyond, not only to establish herself as a young woman in Massachusetts, but also to just provide like a sense of leadership in the city and provide some direction for other people of color who are trying to establish themselves in the city as well. So best of luck to you, Nikki, and hopefully we can move forward together in the future.
Thank you. Calling Christina Capiak. Please state your address.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christina Capiak and I live at 287 Hanover Street in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm actually speaking in behalf of support of the Heritage Club. Nikki John is first and foremost community focused. When I relocated to Boston from Manhattan 3 years ago, she ensured I found a neighborhood to feel at home in. She went above and beyond to make sure I was comfortable, and last year she helped me find my forever home at the address which I stated. She also helped me become a first-time home buyer, navigating all of the intricacies of real estate and purchasing a new home. The new home buyer assistance program can be the difference between being a renter and a homeowner, as closing costs are not insignificant. It is a great initiative, which she is leading as a part of this organization. I have no doubt her care and concern for the community and her well-detailed business plan will be of benefit to the larger community of Charleston and Boston at large. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Calling Sean Boyle. Please state your address.
Hi, my name's Sean. I live at 39A Tibbetstown Way in Charlestown, Massachusetts. I also own Baby Boyle Bouquets, which is located at the Charlestown Working Theater at 442 Bunker Hill Street in Charlestown. I'm speaking against Nikki. To be honest, this is the first time I even saw like what she looked like. I'm a person of color. I'm also LGBTQ owned business. And I grew up in Charlestown in the projects. I have not once met her. She has not once reached out to me. I don't believe she will support this neighborhood or has supported this neighborhood. There's been plenty of opportunities for her to come support other Black-owned or people of color-owned businesses, especially at the May Day market. She did not once show up. The only time I ever heard about the Heritage Club was when someone else from Charlestown who's related to them actually reached out in support. I mean, I'm sure she's a great lady. I just don't think she is well connected to this community, and I don't think she will put her heart and soul into this community. And for one, I'm a little offended that someone who is, promoting people of color owned businesses gay owned businesses has not once reached out to me, and I'm like, just to start up. So yeah, it would have been nice to get some support from another person of color, because growing up in Charlestown, gay, biracial, and poor was definitely hard and a struggle. And starting your own business, as all three, as I just said, has been tough too. So I would have appreciated the support, but I haven't gotten any. I haven't even met her in my life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Steve Janelle. Please state your address.
My address is 42 Perkins Street, Steve Janelle, and I'd like to come out against the Heritage Club. We live, there are just under 10 children under 6 on my block alone. And what we see in the traffic that passes through this neighborhood every day is just so scary for the parents that we have to deal with this. And to have more traffic coming through the neighborhood, it's just, it's not fair to us to have this added to what we already deal with here in our neighborhood. The cars come through too fast and there's too many of them. And there's no question that a shop of this size, bringing in people from outside specifically to come to this location, that it would just add the kind of traffic that we can't deal with in this neighborhood. And we can't have it. So I'm here to say that I'm against this. I've also, I need to echo another caller to say that I've received no outreach from this applicant either. I've had no opportunities to speak with this applicant or except for the public calls. There's been no outreach to ask us about what we do need here in the neighborhood. And so I'm just voicing my opposition to this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Alex Hollis. Please state your address for the record. Is Alex present?
Hi, yes, I'm here. I live at 346 Congress Street in Boston. I'm from the Boston area and have known Nikki for several years now. I'm testifying in support of the Heritage Club and in particular in support of Nikki, who I know to be a person of a lot of integrity and would be an incredible business owner and community member in Charlestown. I know her to be extremely hardworking. So I know somebody had mentioned that she was lazy, and I actually like laughed a little bit because that's the last way that I would describe her. She's extremely industrious, very hardworking. I'm a business owner. I would hire her in a heartbeat. So thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We're now going to turn to individuals with their hands raised. Calling Brian Callahan. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Brian Callahan. Appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I live on 17 Parker Street in Charlestown, and I am also speaking on behalf of the Sullivan Square Residential Association. We provided yesterday afternoon extensive documentation of the longstanding and pre-existing dangerous traffic condition in our community. None of the information I provided you, in fact, all of the information that we provided you, including the 3 or 4 traffic studies, clearly predate, and the issues predate the Heritage Club's desire to be down on Cambridge Street, which abuts our community. What I would ask you in terms of equity and fairness is to completely disregard the traffic study that was provided by Heritage. Not one residential street that abuts this project within 500 feet was included, not Parker, not Perkins, not Hadley, not Brighton Street. These are the streets that these are the residents that raised the issue of cut through commuter traffic in the earlier meeting when you all directed Heritage to go back to the community and talk about the traffic issues that affect them. So the fact that it wasn't included indicates to me that if they had looked at the numbers that I provided you from a study from 2016, it would be detrimental to her cause. So I would ask you to listen to the residents of the community. We're here to protect our children from traffic. That's all. We have had the death of a young bicyclist here. We've had family pets run over. Parker Street has over 1,200 vehicles come down at small residential street in an effort to avoid Sullivan Square. The Heritage is a block away from us at the bottom of our street. So these are real issues. And to make up suggestions that somehow we're prejudiced to Nikki, we like Nikki. She seemed like a decent person, okay? That's silly, and it really denigrates the folks who live here to say that. This is, for us, is real. We don't do these things because we have malfeasance in our hearts. And I'll leave you with this, and I appreciate your courtesy. 3 young families have moved away from the community in the last 6 months with children because of the traffic issue. And that really is the crux of the problem for us. So we oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And your materials were also received and have been shared with the chairwoman and the commissioners. Calling Chris Byrne.
Hi. Sorry. So I mean, Brian just covered a lot of what I wanted to say, and it's really.
Sir, could you please state your address for the record?
Yep. Yeah. Sorry. So I'm on 10 Parker Street, so just up the street. I mean, traffic is the main concern. There's the traffic studies that Brian had shared with you guys that show that it's an issue, and then they did this separate traffic study kind of in isolation, being like, oh, see, it's not an issue, but it kind of ignored everything else that is a problem for the community. One of the things that was brought up last time was for Nikki to reach out to the community. Nothing has happened. We haven't heard. We had the community meeting. They notified the bare minimum, the 300 that they legally had to. They didn't talk to anyone. There was no outreach. There's been no kind of collaboration. actually the proposal that was for the same site 3 years ago, which was some wealthy white businessman from Wellesley, had the same amount of opposition. And he actually at least engaged with the community. There was informal meetings at people's house and trying to work with us. There's been no attempts to work with the people. And it's kind of insulting that Phil sits here and thinks it's because we oppose recreational marijuana. I voted for legalization. That's not the issue, Phil. And I think earlier we heard from the first meeting that financial resources are a big concern. And I mean, this site hasn't even broken ground. There's a ton of money that's going to have to be spent. I don't see how any of the proposals that were laid out are financially viable, the down payment assistance, all this other stuff that's being promised when we haven't even broken ground. Everything seems very pie in the sky. And I think the community hasn't been involved or taken seriously. Thank you.
Are there any, I'm sorry, Andrea Benetti. Andrea, please state your address for the record.
Hi, my name is Andrea Benetti. I also live at 10 Parker Street, and I just want to echo what Brian Callahan and other residents who actually live in this area have been, outspoken about. It really has nothing to do with race or politics. The issue is with the proposed site. The issue is there's been no community outreach. The issue is with this traffic study that purposely omitted the residential streets. As a mother, I have a young family. I know it's been hammered in the traffic, but the traffic is an issue. And I don't see how a size of a building can support. And specifically, I would like to address the person spoke saying that they didn't think residents should speak because of diversity. I think it should actually be the opposite. I think it's great that people speak in favor of Nikki, but I think that should be limited. I think this is about the residents. The residents who live in the area are the ones that are concerned, are the ones who oppose it for good reason. So I just want to echo what other residents in the area have been saying, that this is just not the best location for this type of business. Thank you.
Thank you. Calling Bijaya Sharma. Please state your address for the record. Bijaya Sharma.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your address for the record. Thank you.
I live on 10 Parker Street. I am calling in today in opposition for this applicant. I am a non-white woman and a mother of 8-month-old baby. And every morning and evening, getting the baby in and out of the car is full of anxiety because of all the cars that is basically passing. And, moms want to protect their baby. All families want to protect their baby. As a woman with a career, I understand, and as a non-white woman with a career, I understand that women need to be given ample choices and opportunity to advance. This is not about, so the opposition is not about, not about race or being a woman of color. This is about the location. If Nikki had proposed this business in the Sullivan Square location, where the traffic would be included just in the rotary, I would have been in full support of it. So this is not about who is making the application. This is about where it is. And we are all very concerned about the traffic that is currently a huge problem in our community, and how this will affect or make the situation even worse. So I oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there, I'm sorry, is Mike McGuire?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your address for the record.
Sure. I live in Needham. And I just wanted to bring up one point is that, I believe when Nikki was talking to all of the town representatives in regards to the parking study, the traffic study, that she did point out the need to maybe look at the side streets, and all of the professionals that work for the city and the people that advise for the city said that that was not, that did need to be done, and it wouldn't be done. And they also were the ones that were funding it. So I think that Nikki was speaking on behalf of the Charlestown residents, and that, I think it's the city that wasn't hearing its residents. And so I'd just like to make that distinction, that people should know that Nikki was speaking on behalf of them and trying to fight for them. Whereas, it was really the city who didn't really want to go that route. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any individuals who have not previously testified who wish to testify regarding this matter?
I do, Robin Reed. Before I was answering a question, I was not testifying. This is my testimony now.
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you please state your address for the record?
Robin Reed, Dorchester, Adams Street, Dorchester. And yes, what Mike was just saying is true, and I had mentioned that earlier, and perhaps the individuals that live on in Parker Street there did not hear that, but we were aware of the numbers, and we discussed those numbers of the traffic on the side streets with the BTD, and they specifically said that they were not going to make it a resident-only street, and that they were going to come back and talk with you guys about your needs. And that was because Nikki advocated for you, not because the counselor's office did, not because ONS did. Nikki advocated for you. So that's number one. Number two, those individuals that said they did not get correspondence, we can't correspond to everybody in Charlestown. We have to correspond to what the law requires us to. So I'm sorry that 10 Parker Street is off the grid, but we did correspond. And I believe the only person who spoke here today, Brian Callahan, was in that area. But we are as concerned about the safety of your children as anybody. Also, the housing is, I don't care who gets out of poverty and who gets housing. That helps the social determinants of health. And the people who live in the area are going to be the first to know about when applications are open. So Charlestown still stands to benefit more. You heard somebody else earlier today offers $15,000 and they only do 20 transactions a day. Netta offers $250,000 a year in benefits. These are above and beyond the community impact fee of 3%. So it is possible. All these people that are saying it's not feasible, it is very feasible. And all depends upon how busy the business is and what kind of income there is. There was zero support for school desegregation in Charlestown when it happened, but I think most people looking back will say it was a good thing. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to desegregate cannabis. We're trying to support the neighborhood, and we are being conscious. Nikki did an impact study report even before this report. It was not taken into consideration, but this report confirmed that.
But in 2 minutes, you can also submit any additional testimony. Jay Parisi, please state your full name and address for the record.
Yes, John Parisi, 92 Cambridge Street. I'm one of the owners of Acme Bookbinding. We've been in business here for over 40 years. We employed countless people, many from the Charlestown, Parker Street area. With all of the employees we've had over the years, sometimes we reached 125, 150 employees. We didn't have 150 cars in our parking lot. We only had parking at the time for about 35 or 40 cars. And the reason why Sullivan Square, Charlestown was so great to us was because of the public transportation. Nikki is counting on public transportation, bicycles, all the things that are easy. There are so many cannabis shops around. People aren't going to drive from Beverly. People aren't going to drive from other parts of the city when there are could be other cannabis shops closer. But she's counting on the public transportation right up the street, the buses that come up and down Cambridge Street, so that people can come to and from her shop. And so I really believe that the traffic that everyone is so worried about is not going to be people driving from out of the city to get over here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who have not previously testified who wish to testify regarding this application? Again,
Hello?
hello, please state your name.
Hello?
Hello, please state your name and address for the record.
Sis Gretorix, 341 Bunker Hill Street, Charlestown. Hold up. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I've never met Nikki, but I've heard wonderful things about her. And I think putting that heritage down by an off-beaten path, if you want to put it that way, it's not on a main drag. It's parallel to Cambridge Street. There's street lights there, there's pedestrian lights there. And as far as traffic goes, traffic in Charlestown's a mess anyway. No matter what you do, it's a mess. Some days you can't even go out. So it's just a matter of her doing what she has to do and what she promises, and I am in full support of it. And I also wrote a letter to Lydia, and so I don't know what she did with it, but I did send a letter to Lydia. And also, I might as well tell you that I'm Maggie Supri's aunt, and very upset the day she called her a liar. She slandered the Supri name, and that bothers me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there, I see that Paul Parisi.
Yes. Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please state your name. Yes, please state your name and address.
Martina Arroyo, and I live at 33 Polk Street in Charlestown.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for taking my call. I would like to say I support Nikki John 100% in the Heritage Club. I also wrote to Lydia Edwards regarding the Heritage House, and I've gotten no response from anything or anybody. So all I can say is go Nikki. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Parisi, if you could please state your address for the record.
Yeah, hi, Paul Parisi. I'm the owner of 116 Cambridge Street, along with my brother John, the location that Nikki would be operating from. And I'd just like to say that John and I support Nikki 100%. She's a terrific businesswoman. She very hard worker, very efficient, and very motivated to succeed. And we are investing in her, trusting that she'll be a good businesswoman. We know she will be, and the business will succeed. And we're confident that she'll be able to pay the rent when she gets her license. And we hope that that happens soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who wish to testify who have not previously testified? Again, the record will remain open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any additional questions for the applicant?
I just want to make sure the applicant submitted the list of abutters that they flyered by certified mail.
The certified mail was for the community meeting, and that we can request that from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, and we generated the list for the flyer for this.
I'd like to take a look at that list to see who received notification.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions from the commissioners? Seeing none, the board will take this matter under advisement. Again, the record will be kept open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. We will take a 3-minute recess and return to the agenda. Thank you all. We will now return to the agenda. Again, as a reminder for those who might not have been on earlier, item 3, Races on the Hill LLC, 123 Terrace Street, Mission Hill, and Pure Oasis LLC, 535 Washington Street, Brighton, have both deferred their applications and will not be heard today. Calling item 4, Rooted In LLC. The proposed licensed premise is 331 Newberry Street, Back Bay. This is an application for a recreational cannabis dispensary license with proposed hours of operation, Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is an equity applicant. The date of the initial application is January 12th, 2021. The date of filing with Inspectional Services is January 12th, 2021. The date of the community meeting is February 23rd, 2021. There is a buffer zone of a half mile from another existing cannabis establishment. Before we begin with the presentation, I will ask Attorney Chayla White to present regarding the equity status of this applicant.
Good afternoon again. I was able to certify Rooted In LLC as an equity applicant through the documentation submitted by Rokia Begum and Solomon Chowdhury. Ms. Begum is the CMO and the 45% beneficial interest holder of Rooted In, and Mr. Chowdhury is the CFO and the 6% beneficial interest holder of Rooted In. Together, they are the 51% beneficial interest holders of the company. Both Ms. Begum and Mr. Chowdhury submitted documentation that verified that they have been residents of an area of a disproportionate impact as defined by the Cannabis Control Commission for at least 5 of the past 10 years. They both submitted copies of their driver's licenses and other documentation, including bank statements that confirm their addresses in Roxbury and Dorchester, areas both of which are noted as areas of disproportionate impact. I always get choked up on that, using the geocoder address search tool that the CCC uses. Using the same documentation, Mr. Chowdhury and Ms. Begum provided documentation that established that they have been residents of the city of Boston since at least 2013, satisfying the criteria that they have resided in the city of Boston for the past 7 years. And both Ms. Begum and Mr. Chowdhury have self-identified as Asian and of Bengali descent. Are there any questions about the certification process?
Seeing no questions, thank you very much. Who is present on behalf of the applicant?
Hello, Brian Keith is here.
Solomon Chowdhury is here.
Thank you. Give me one moment to share the screen. As a reminder, you will have 10 minutes, and Jasmine Nguyen will give you a reminder at the 5-minute mark and the 8-minute mark. Please begin.
Good afternoon, and thank you. My name is Brian Keith, co-founder and co-owner of Rooted in Roxbury. This will all sound very familiar to the board as we have just presented to you about 3 weeks ago. Today, we will be sharing background on our company and our experience, as well as our plans for recreational cannabis retail business at 331 Newberry Street. We will get through this presentation as quickly as possible while still providing you with thorough time to information in detail. Our mission statement, next slide, is a guidepost for everything we do. We believe that people of Boston, and specifically our communities of color, should be the ones to participate, own, and invest in cannabis businesses in the city of Boston. Next slide. My wife, Joanne, and I, and our partners and co-owners, Rokia and Solomon, are longtime Boston residents. Joanne and I live in Roxbury with our son, August. Rokia and Solomon live in Dorchester with their daughter, Arya. Next slide. We couple our experience as community members ourselves with a strong track record of running successful neighborhood-based businesses and have extensive experience in the operation of regulated industries and managing thriving retail operations. Next slide, please. We wanted to be thoughtful, creative, and innovative regarding the manner in which we finance this project, all the while ensuring we were providing the community, and specifically communities of color, with the opportunity to receive positive impacts from cannabis. To that end, we created an investment model which we used in Nubian Square, as well as we'll be using it in Newberry Street. with as little as $1,200 and as much as $62,000, members of the community can have a seat at the table in a billion-dollar industry. Our investors are 100% people of color, 51% women, and 100% Boston-based. Next slide. And next slide. We are proposing to operate a little more than 1,500 square feet of ground level retail space at 331 Newbury Street. The location is currently vacant and was most recently the home of Tom Brown Shoes. This location meets the strict state standards as it relates to siting. 331 Newbury Street was actually the first cannabis location to be approved on Newbury Street when Compassionate Organics received zoning approval in 2017. I don't think it will be a surprise to anyone that most available spaces on Newbury Street are out of reach for most small businesses like ours. This location is an opportunity for us and our investors, Boston residents who would never otherwise have the opportunity to open a business on Newbury Street. We feel that our business should have the opportunity to operate on Newbury, as so many national and international operators do. Next slide, please. This slide is a look at our proposed floor plan. Our intention is to have four to 6 points of sale stations available to accommodate customers every 10 to 15 minutes. Next slide. We will be operating 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. with reduced hours on Sunday. We will be appointment only when we open and until we have a good understanding of peak demand windows. We will also be implementing an order ahead and virtual queuing system. Finally, just like the local wine shop or brewery, you must be 21 years or older to use this product. But unlike the local wine shop or brewery, if you are under the age of 21, not only can you not purchase our product, you cannot even enter our store. Next slide, please. Ware Security is a Black-owned local security company founded in November of 2002. Ware is a certified special police operator with the city of Boston and the state of Massachusetts. Ware Security provides private security for Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and is currently contracted at 18 businesses across Boston, including Dimick Hospital, the Foodies Urban Market, Riccardi Boston, among others. Next slide, please. This slide details the extensive security requirements that we have in place to meet and exceed state regulations, including state-of-the-art seat-to-stale coded tracking of products. Notably, you must scan your ID for entrance, and it is checked 2 more times by other agents before a purchase can be made. We are aligned in keeping underage individuals from using the product and entering the store. We also know the community has concerns about public consumption of product, which is not only illegal, but will also be closely monitored by Mike's team in coordination with Boston Police. We will also employ a good neighbor agreement with our customers, and if violated, they will no longer be welcome as customers of our shop. Next slide. We know that the siting of any new business in the city of Boston, traffic and transportation is a concern for residents who call this area home. There are a number of things within our control to help respond to concerns about traffic and parking. This includes our order ahead capabilities, our commitment to appointment only at the time of opening, and going back to our good neighbor policy, if acceptance will be required. So double parking to run in and pick up your items will void your purchase and you will not be served. This location benefits from being at the hub of our city's public transportation system, nearby blue bike stations. And like Compassionate Organics, the previous owners of this location, we will work with the local parking garages to ensure our clients have availability of parking if necessary. The Pilgrim Parking Garage on Dalton had previously guaranteed 10 spots, and we will work to continue that agreement. Next slide. As you can see, thank you. As you can see, we have a very aggressive hiring plan. We are confident we can meet or exceed. At minimum, 80% of our employees will be Boston residents, 50% Roxbury residents, 51% people of color, and 51% will be women. We plan to hit these metrics across all levels of our organization. Next slide, please. Our employee wages will be competitive and beyond what is considered a living wage as defined by the city of Boston. In addition to the benefits you see mentioned here, we will create a profit sharing program where employees will receive a financial benefit based on the location's success. We will be Corey friendly with a hiring preference for those with cannabis infractions and plan to work closely with city and nonprofit entities to develop a pipeline of talent to operate our store. As an added benefit, we will offer down payment assistance so that our employees have the opportunity to own a home and stay in the city of Boston long-term, a city where the cost of living and owning rises dramatically every year. Next slide. I'd like to provide a little more detail on our plan to be a good neighbor to this community. First, as required by law, we'll have a low-key storefront with the name of our business only. We can't market on the exterior of the building. We also will be having every customer sign a good neighbor agreement at their first visit. You can see from the slide some of the criteria customers will be agreeing to. In violations of that policy, again, we'll see those customers banned. Additionally, we have a program that incentivizes our customers to patronize other nearby locally owned businesses, similar to the program we developed in Nubian Square that we discussed 3 weeks ago. The same program. We continue to work with the community to develop additional items specific to the needs of the neighborhood and further strengthen this policy. Next slide. We engage with our neighbors through the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay, the Back Bay Business Association, our elected officials, specifically District 5 Councilor Kenzie Bach and State Representative Jay Livingstone. We also met independently with the neighborhood of the Back Bay Building Use Committee prior to our official abutters meeting. It was through these meetings that we committed to using only the front entrance of our establishment for deliveries, employees, and customers, as well as a permanent ban on the sale of single-use marijuana cigarettes, as we have done in all of our locations. And final slide. In summary of all discussed today, you can see we anticipate $400K in tax revenue, which is separate from what we anticipate being $400K for the business incentive program. 25 plus local jobs and an unmistakable intentionality of keeping revenues, jobs, and wealth creation within Boston's communities of color. With that, next slide, we look forward to taking your questions, and thank you so much for your time. How did I do, Jasmine? I see her smiling. How much time do I have left?
Thank you very much. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Lombos, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Not at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions?
One, Brian, you've been pretty consistent in these presentations, so I don't have a lot, but you did not at this time talk about, actually this came up in the first presentation we heard. The down payment assistance, you're really thinking about the affordability in Boston? Is it helping folks to live in Boston?
For us, it's two-pronged. It's kind of similar to a question you asked on our initial conversation. We anticipate, and I think we put this in our documentation, $5,000 in a down payment assistance fund, not total, but per individual who would qualify for that. And we also couple that with better than minimum wage offerings. And I think we've committed to a minimum of $16 per hour. But that won't be what we offer our employees. That's just the number that we say we will not fall below. So for us, it's complementing the down payment assistance with offering very competitive wages. We don't think that we will solve the problem of housing every person, who needs housing in the city of Boston. But we think that, with those competitive wages plus down payment assistance, we can allow people more opportunity to reach that goal if that's what they wish.
Thanks. And then the last time, if I remember correctly, there was a talk about profit sharing. And is that location specific? Are you thinking this location is different from what you were proposing last time? So it's a different.
What we haven't hammered out is if the profit sharing for the employees would be location specific, or if they would be looked at more as like, how well the company itself does. Because, there'll be situations where employee number one who works at Newbury Street would then cover a shift or also work at, Nubian Square or another location. So I think it's not as easy as, as we're doing for investors where we say, your investment is location specific. We haven't, like I said, we haven't finalized that, but it's something that we're thinking about because we want to make sure that we're, being fair and equitable to the employees. So again, thinking out loud and just doing it here on this call, it would probably be something that is on the company level as opposed to location specific, but we haven't hammered that out and finalized it yet.
Thanks.
Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, and it's just a little bit about the, I'm going to do my hair. It's a little bit, what did I do? I was so intent in your presentation. It's about the lease. So you're taking over an existing lease, am I correct?
Yes, that's
Now,
correct.
how does that work when it comes time for you to reestablish a lease with the owners? And it's just for my curiosity. I just want to know how that works.
Her
Sure,
hair's
absolutely.
Nice too. She went and got it done.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually did this myself. So with regards to the lease of the building, it's currently with GTI and the landlord, Green Thumb Inc. They were mentioned in a previous application. So currently they're leasing the building from the landlord. And what we're doing currently is subleasing from GTI. Our goal is, once we're further along in this process, we would then work out an arrangement directly with the landlord to lease the building from them.
Okay.
And I've been very transparent with Leslie about how that would work. GTI would still have a level of financial stake in this, not in our company, but in this location, similar to our investors, because I think it's probably been 4 years that they've been invested in this location, and they're giving us a good opportunity to basically take it over. But financially, it wouldn't make sense to them to just give it to us out of the kindness of their hearts. So they will have a financial stake that will end at some point. It won't be in perpetuity, but that's something that we will work out, and we'll share all the details of that transaction and our relationship with GTI with the board.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to the chairman and the other commissioners, one of the things that Brian and many of the applicants have talked with Jasmine and I about is that if they are granted a license, and whether it's a situation like this or whether it's raising capital, everyone has been made very clear that in order to take on investors or additional profit sharing, that does require a hearing and the approval of this board. So everyone's been fully transparent, and we make sure to advise everyone of that. We will now move to public testimony. Are there any elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify regarding this application?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Shanice Pinsel with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. There was a community meeting that I held on February 23rd, 2021 via WebEx, which was attended by residents, community stakeholders, and representatives of local elected officials. The applicant completed all statutory requirements. At this time, the Mayor's Office would like to defer to the board regarding this matter and ask that the applicant continue outreach to the community as they move through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify regarding this matter?
Hello, my name is Lauren Brody from Councillor Kenzie Bach's office. Councillor Bach would like to go on the record in non-opposition of Rooted in Roxbury. Rooted in Roxbury is the strongest equity applicant the councillor has seen in this process to date. Their proposed ownership model of local shares starting at just $1,200 will build community wealth as opposed to just creating wealth for a handful of specific individuals. And this is a key element of what it really means to bring economic justice to this industry. Rooted in Roxbury is also the neighborhood's preferred location on Newbury Street. However, the councillor does not think approving a fourth marijuana dispensary for the Back Bay, a series of approvals that has set up requests at the Zoning Board of Appeals for a second and now a third variance within the same area, reflects reasonable community expectations that the half-mile buffer zone rule will be upheld. Due to this policy objection, Councillor Bach is not speaking in support today. However, because of the superior qualifications and the commitments of Rooted in Roxbury as an equity proprietor and the preferability of this site on Newbury Street over others, the councillor is going on the record as non-opposition to their proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other elected officials or I'm sorry, Commissioner Holmes.
I just have a question because I was just a little bit confused. So was neighborhood services non-opposition, or were they?
Not to speak for neighborhood services, I'm not sure if Shanice or Patrick Fendel, I believe they stated that they were deferring to the decision of the board.
Okay, so they don't have an opinion one way or the other, basically.
That would be my takeaway.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify? We will now turn to public testimony. We will begin with
Can I ask a question before we move on to public testimony?
Absolutely.
Counselor Bach's office just raised the buffer zone issue. So I'd just like to give the applicant an opportunity to present their buffer zone statement to the board for our consideration.
Would you like me to read the statement itself?
Or explain it in your own words.
Oh, sure.
Why we should take a look at a fourth cannabis applicant in this neighborhood. Why we should pierce the buffer zone for your application.
I'll start and then I'll let Dot weigh in as well, Dot Joyce, who does some representation for us. But for us, we take a look at Newberry Street, Boylston Street, and the area in general. And for us, there's a recognition of the amount of foot traffic that there is in the area. And then secondly, we look at, stores, whether it's a coffee shop, a gym, wine shop, cupcake store, all types of things are replicated on Newberry Street several times over. But each of those locations come with their own unique way of presenting what it is that they're selling to consumers. And I think that, I won't speak for the other proponents, but I believe that, each of us would also do something very similar, where we are a replication of something that already exists, but we would present, our product in our own unique way and manner. And I think that, when you're in an area like Newberry Street, there are a lot of different options that customers have and that customers are looking for. They're just not looking for, that one store, and that's the only store that they expect to see. They expect to see multiple places where they can buy jeans or shoes or whatever it happens to be. But then I'll let Dot kind of close it out.
I think that we recognized early on when Brian and his team wanted to locate in the Newberry Street district area, we reached out to the community and it was very clear that they didn't want more. And so we approached 331 Newberry Street in knowing that they didn't want more and knowing that 331 had already been a designated cannabis establishment location back in 2017. So in talking with the ownership of 331's leasehold, they engaged in a conversation with Brian and it seemed to work out. So not only will they be a different concept at that location, the location was previously approved by the community and the ZBA.
Thank you. We will now move to public testimony. We'll begin with anyone who signed up via the link. Otherwise, please utilize the chat function to request to testify. As a reminder, your testimony will be limited to 2 minutes. When you are called on, please state your name, address, and affiliation, if any. Calling Elliot Laffer.
Hi, I'm Elliot Laffer. You can hear me?
Yes, we can. Please state your address and affiliation for the record.
Elliot Laffer, I'm Chair of the Neighborhood Association Back Bay, live at 90 Commonwealth Avenue in Back Bay. The question of the buffer zone is really significant here, but unfortunate because this is a much better location in our opinion than the previous location that the board approved on Newbury Street, but neither one obviously has gone to the Board of Appeals yet. This block is virtually all commercial except at the corners, and the buildings were not built as residences. They were built as carriage houses or stables. That gives them access directly from the street without a stoop, which is better for handicap access. The applicant has been very, very willing to meet with us and to agree on issues that we raised of concern, including the sale of single joints and also taking all of the deliveries and so on in through the front on Newbury Street, which therefore takes the impact away from the residences that are on Commonwealth Avenue. And so we are not opposed to this application. The Board of Appeals is going to have to sort out which ones they approve. We are certainly not accepting of having 4 applicants in the half-mile buffer zone. Hopefully, when we get to the Board of Appeals, this applicant will prevail over an alternative location on Newbury Street that you guys saw before. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other, I'm sorry, let me just look in the chat. Is Connie Forbes present?
It's okay.
I am.
Please take your address for the record.
Connie
really?
Forbes, 47 Wambeck Street, Boston, 02121. I just have a policy
Oh,
and
not in
procedure
relation to donation,
question.
though.
Sorry about the background. So just in terms of transferring a host agreement to another organization, I don't understand the policy on doing that. Is it that if we have it approved that it's automatically acceptable for the next person to get it? Just a little bit on that would be.
That is something I was going to bring up to the applicant's statement about 331 Newberry Street. That location was never considered for purposes of the buffer zone. That application and the Zoning Board of Appeals decision in 2017 was previously in the queue for consideration by this board. So for purposes of this board and the buffer zone in this board's rules and regulations, that was not an existing cannabis location. In terms of that HCA, there was actually never a host community agreement entered into with that applicant. That applicant withdrew its application. This is just the same space in which there was previously granted zoning relief for a medical dispensary. So that was several iterations of the licensing process in the city of Boston ago. So that specific location, 331 Newberry Street, and Compassionate Organics, who previously had a pending application before this board, has not been considered for purposes of the buffer zone. So there was not, when the first application in this area, which was Sierra Naturals, when they were considered, there was no buffer zone. The second and the third, there was a buffer zone for each. So I think that's an important question, an important distinction to make, that for the purposes of this board, this was not an existing establishment, and this application has to go through both this board's process and then subsequently the Zoning Board of Appeals. Those decisions are not transferable.
Thank you.
Are there any other individuals who wish to testify regarding this application? Again, the record will be kept open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. Chairwoman Joyce or any of the commissioners, are there any follow-up questions? Right, seeing none, the board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Calling R2 Resilient Remedies LLC. The proposed license premise is 31 Cambridge Street in Charlestown. The license type is a recreational cannabis dispensary license. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is a non-equity applicant. The date of initial application was April 24th, 2020. The date of filing with the Inspectional Services Department was April 16th, 2020. And the date of the community meeting was October 22nd, 2020. Again, for the record, as Chairwoman Joyce raised and was discussed earlier, the prior Charlestown application is located within a half-mile of this proposed establishment. Should the board vote to grant that license at that previously discussed location, that would create a buffer zone with this location, meaning that pursuant to the board's rules and regulations, the heightened level of scrutiny as articulated in the regulations would be applied. Who is present on behalf of the applicant?
Hi, I'm Dot Joyce, presenting on behalf of the applicant. I have with me Dan Linsky and Ralph DiNascisco from Stantec, as well as Tanya Trevison, our attorney, Nancy Lowe.
All right, just give me one moment. I will bring up your presentation. As a reminder, you will have 10 minutes. At the 10-minute mark, you will be muted. Jasmine Nguyen, our project manager, will give you a warning at the 5-minute mark and the 8-minute mark.
We'll do our best.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairwoman Joyce and Attorney Hawkins and members of the Cannabis Board for the opportunity to present Resilient Remedies proposal for retail cannabis establishment at 31 Cambridge Street in Charlestown. My name is Dot Joyce and I represent R2, and I'm also an investor. R2, next slide, sorry. R2 is founded by Jack Kelly, a longtime friend and former colleague. I'm very proud to support him in his efforts to open a small business in the community he grew up in and has given him so much. Jack is a very active member of the recovery community and is the author of Sharp Needle, his story of addiction and recovery from opiates. Jack has joined with Harold Mateo, who brings 20 years of experience, business management, and expertise in regulatory compliance. They met through another cannabis endeavor and are both designated social equity by the State Cannabis Control Commission. Harold earned his MBA from Babson and his finance degree from Bentley. As our Chief Operating Officer, Harold will oversee daily operations, build out our team, and ensure company compliance with state and local regulatory requiremements. In addition to partnering with Harold, Jack has assembled an incredible team of experts and professionals in their field of expertise, some of whom you'll hear from today. Next slide. R2 is designed to meet the scale of our neighborhood. When Jack says he wants to do this right for Charlestown, he means in design, values, operations, and scale. We will operate a very small boutique style cannabis retailer, supporting our clients in their holistic approach to health and wellness through cannabis. In addition to offering high quality products, we also hope to introduce complementary practices like yoga and meditation, likely through partnerships with other local businesses. So, next slide. R2 is deeply committed to building and supporting a diverse team with a specific focus on addressing the inequities resulting from the war on drugs. We have developed a robust plan with aggressive hiring goals, including 50% women, 25% of those from BIPOC, disability, or LGBTQ communities, 25% for those disproportionately harmed by the war on drugs, including those with arrests, convictions, or residents of those areas. We will operationalize the components of our DE&I and our positive impact plan through partners in the Charlestown community and Suffolk County. Next slide. Adding to our DE&I work we will implement R2's positive impact plan with a goal to reduce the barriers to entry that exist in cannabis industry through mentorship, pathways to capital, and professional development. Our plan also includes wealth building opportunities through either profit sharing or retirement options. It's also very important to us to have a sustainable charitable giving component to our business that encourages not only our giving, but participation by our employees. Next slide. We believe 31 Cambridge Street is an ideal location for adult use retailer in Charlestown. It's a very small location with just 1,000 square feet of first floor retail space. We believe it fits the size and scale of the community in which it intends to serve. Surrounded by a wealth of public transportation options and ample available public parking, it also meets the zoning requirements for the siting of a cannabis establishment in the city of Boston. The property is located in a local convenience subdistrict, is not located within 2,640 feet from another existing cannabis establishment, and is not within 500 feet from a pre-existing public or private school. We hold a 5-year lease for the location, and the building is deeded for retail use on the ground floor. Next slide. Just a look at our floor plan. On the right is the first floor space, which is our retail sales floor. We will have just 4 points of sale. Our customers, deliveries, and bank service would enter from the rear of the building, and customers would exit out the front onto the Cambridge Street side. On the left is a view of the basement space where we would have an office and utility space, as well as our vault. Next slide. Community support. We are proud to have one that supported many in our community over the course of the past year. We have submitted a combined 241 letters of signatures of individual support, in addition to the Charlestown Coalition, Representative Dan Ryan, District 1 City Councilor Lydia Edwards, the Abraham Lincoln Veterans Post, and the Charlestown Neighborhood Council. Next slide. Moving on to operations, safety, and security. This is a highly regulated industry, and we intend to exceed the state's stringent regulations, including through seed to sale tracking for every product and a highly sophisticated safety and security operation. We've hired and retained former Boston Police Chief Dan Linsky and Kroll Security to design and implement the systems for this facility in collaboration with local police and other locally hired security personnel. Dan?
Thanks, Todd. Chair, members of the board, thank you for allowing me to testify. We will have the processes we need for access control and programs. For diversion, when you come to the facility, you'll be greeted outside. Your identification will be swiped and checked. There'll be a secondary check and a third check. Not only will we be swiping the ID, it's one thing to swipe it into technology, but if I've got a valid ID and our staff is going to be trained to make sure they're looking to verify the picture goes with the ID, questions and answers, and making sure that people are not trying to use their family member's ID or something like that. We also, to ensure our staff is following up policies and procedures, it's great to have a bunch of cameras. We'll be doing security audits where we go in and look at the video to make sure that our staff is complying with all the policies and procedures by doing random video audits to make sure that our team is going forward. Next slide, please. We are going to make sure we've got a good neighbors practices in place where we alert the customers as to what they can and cannot do. Any violation of that comes to us that we're aware of from law enforcement or neighbors, we will take steps to trespass that person from coming back into our facility. Next slide. First visit talks about the education piece, what you can and cannot do, how you transport it, how you keep it safe at home from children, how you should travel with it and make sure you're in compliance with the law. The fact that you can't do looping and come back in. We want to make sure we give people takeaway products, make sure they're educated into the fact that they can have some outcomes if they've never used this product before, especially edibles. We also want to make sure that they're aware that anyone who's got immigration issues may want to make sure they're aware that even though it's legal in Massachusetts, it could violate and be a challenge for them with immigration authority. So we want to make sure people are aware of that and making conscious decisions. Go ahead.
1 minute warning.
Thank you, Danny. And knowing our community, we'll also engage with Stantec. I'm turning it over to Ralph Cisco, our engineer, to walk through plans with Sullivan Square. We've also agreed to retain him to help the Charlestown Sullivan Square community in their efforts to mitigate any concerns. Ralph?
Thank you, Dot. Thank you, Chief Linsky. The R2 site is this boutique neighborhood serving establishment is to be located really in the middle of the most connected multimodal hub north of downtown Boston. It has robust pedestrian and bicycle connections to the surrounding neighborhood. It's less than 600 feet from the head house to the Orange Line station. And also it's a very significant bus hub. You know, as you can see, there's an Orange Line train every 4 minutes, a bus nearly every 1 minute. These are all pre-pandemic numbers, along with some of the ridership numbers of the folks that pass through here every day. Many of those folks are likely to be our customers. You know, talked about the bicycle lanes that have been, you know, built and are continuing to be built and connecting the site, you know, in every direction to the surrounding neighborhood. Even that blue bike station right near us serves over 600 riders a month. If you can go to the next slide. The site is also surrounded by parking facilities, public facilities, private facilities, publicly available spaces, you know, including some of the spaces that we're showing on the street. There's over 550 spaces that are publicly available directly adjacent to the project site. We'll be directing some of our customers to use those as well. But the idea is, if you can go to the next slide, Dot, that we will actually have a robust transportation demand management system. These are all the ways that we're going to encourage our employees and our customers to arrive here without driving. You know, for employees, that starts right at the beginning by hiring people from the neighborhood who could walk here. We will not be providing vehicle parking for folks, but we'll be providing MBTA passes or on-site bicycle parking or Blue Bikes memberships for all of our employees. And for our customers, really a number of unique things that we're talking about here. You know, initially appointments will be necessary to come visit the establishment. That provides a great opportunity to tell people about all the other multimodal options in order to get here. We'll be providing reimbursement for folks, nearby accessible bicycle parking, all sorts of information. I can say this, that we are currently working with the City of Boston to update their transportation demand management policies. And what R2 is proposing to do well exceeds even the coming guidelines that the City of Boston is promulgating. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Tom.
Thanks, Ralph. Thank you to the board for giving us this opportunity. We hope to take any questions you have now.
Thank you very much. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do have a couple questions. The board memo says there'll be no queuing on the street. Can you go into greater detail about that? It's 1,000 square feet. How are you going to control the lines?
We plan to do appointment only until we have a better handle on what the daily traffic is. Once we have a better handle on the daily traffic, we will employ some of the same systems that restaurants do in terms of queuing. So we will ping people when it's their turn. Because we don't have a business district around us at this time, hopefully in time there will be, but we are hoping that we give them enough time to get to us. So it will be slow traffic at this location, which is the exact reason why we chose it, because it's small.
Okay, and my other question is, and I know it was mentioned by Ralph, but the parking, there's no parking on site. Where is the closest parking lot? I know you mentioned it, but I missed it.
There are 3 publicly available lots directly adjacent to the site that are available for a fee. Anybody can park there, just pay the price. We'll be directing folks there with our initial information. And it should be noted also that for any Uber or Lyft drop-offs, we'll be directing folks to the MBTA facility, the parking facility nearby.
How
So they
much
won't be
parking?
queuing directly in front of the site.
Can you give me an example of what it costs to park a car at the 3 publicly adjacent lots?
It's $5 or $6, I believe. Those are pre-pandemic prices. I couldn't say what it is at the moment.
And do you have any plans to partner with a delivery company?
Not at this time.
Leslie, those are my questions for now. I might have some more.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I just want to see if I can get somebody to tell me what distinguishes this traffic circle, which is closer to the Schrafft's building, which I know historically is just a cluster at rush hour with everybody going in and out. Now you have a new casino there, so now you're adding more traffic. What makes this location better suited for traffic than the one we heard earlier today?
Well, I'll start and maybe Ralph can support because he's the traffic engineer, but our interest is to serve the people in the community. And we know that there are thousands of people that use that train station every day. We are actually going to discourage as many people as possible from actually coming to our location in a vehicle. Our whole business model is based on attracting customers that are either commuting to and from work or live in the community. We do not want to negotiate with our neighbors to use the lot that is within our ability to use. We would rather have no parking and prevent people from thinking that they can drive there than to offer one parking space.
I just want to note for the record that you are encouraging people not to drive, but your proposal mentions 3 adjacent parking lots. So,
right.
So it's confusing to see where your emphasis is.
What we showed, if I may, in our presentation was really all of the multimodal options that there are in and around the site. So we looked at the transit accessibility and use. We looked at the bicycle accessibility and use. We actually looked at all the crosswalks and pedestrian signals and curb ramps in the surrounding area. And we did look at parking, partially because it's also part of the scoring criteria that there's parking available in the surrounding area. So we did want to document all of that as well. To back up what Dot was saying, we certainly did look at what the potential use here at the site could be. And one thing that we did notice, we didn't put it in the presentation, was based on the appointment only and the boutique nature of the shop that's being proposed here, the number of trips that can be expected on a given day is a lot less than some of the other potential uses that the site is eligible for. So if this were to be a coffee shop or a small restaurant or even like a little neighborhood bodega or convenience store, those would generate 3 to 4 to 5 times as many daily trips as what this use would in the very same space. And all of those things are also allowed by use by right here. So we tried to demonstrate as much as we can the local multimodal connections in and around the site, if that's helpful.
Thank you, I'm good.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, do you have questions for the applicant?
Yes, thanks, Leslie. Dot, I'm looking at your positive impact plan. So can you talk a little bit about your profit sharing? Can you break it down a little bit for me, what it looks like?
Yeah, sure. We're offering profit sharing or retirement benefits. We're leaving it up to a little bit on our employees to decide at this moment, but profit sharing would work similar to any business where all of the revenues in, minus all the expenses and the taxes, our employees would get a bonus structure type of deal. So if we do well in a given year, they'll get a bonus. And that would be.
Do you have a ceiling on that or delta?
At this point, we do not. We have not set a ceiling or a floor, to be honest.
All right. And then on the charitable giving, you said that you commit to $5,000 in additional charitable grants Which organizations are you targeting? Is it just in and around Charlestown?
Yeah, I think our initial, it was a $50,000 donation to our charitable giving fund. We'd like to have members of the Charlestown community actually join on a committee to decide which neighborhood organizations. Jack Kelly, who's been our founder of this company, will be directing or helping to direct where some of those funds would go based on his experience within the community. Clearly, the recovery community is something of interest to us, and working with those individuals in that community.
And your mentorship and partnership program, that's for your employees?
Yeah, so if you've noticed,
Training type thing?
a little bit of the model that I engaged with Jack on. So Jack came to me with an idea. He needed a little help with funding. He needed a little help with some teammates around him. We hope to do the same thing for others in the industry. So if there are people working for us that want to get deeper into the industry or build their own sort of, way into the industry, we don't want to stifle them from doing that. We would like to help them. So we will help introduce them to capital. We'll help introduce them to the support systems necessary, and hopefully encourage and break down the barriers to people being able to get into the business.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Lambos, do you have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I might have missed it, but what was the starting wage?
We didn't share it. It's a good question because we didn't put it in our presentation because I was afraid we were going too long. We would start above minimum wage as well. We are actually thinking $18 an hour.
Okay, and then can you explain to me a little bit about this blind hiring process, given that you have these goals and metrics around targeted hiring for
Yes.
people of color and women? What does blind hiring mean then?
It's similar to what some in corporate America are doing now, which is in your initial search of applicants, you take away any identifiers to anybody's race, gender, or anything of that nature. So you're really basing your hiring on the credentials of someone or the application materials of someone and not their identifiers.
And then how is that helpful to you then in hiring your targeted goals of 50% women, 25% people of color? Just, I don't understand that. Can you explain to me how that works?
Yeah, so recruitment is going to be a key to that. And our recruitment strategies with working with the Suffolk County House of Corrections, working with the Bunker Hill development in their adult education program, working with Bunker Hill Community College, we are expecting and we are driving towards a very diverse pool of individuals. We just do not want to have any type of bias in our original screenings. So we will hit our metrics. In fact, in our evaluation criteria, if you want us to send it to you in more detail, we can. It's in our operations plan that we are needing to report out monthly. And also if we don't hit our metrics, we need to create a plan to correct those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Before we turn to public testimony, Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any additional questions?
I do. The presentation seemed to brand this location and this business as a small boutique cannabis establishment, which is different than some of the other places we've heard earlier in the hearing and in other hearings. I'd like to get some more information about that. What, other than the size being 1,000 feet, what makes you small and boutique? Are you looking for product from some place that makes you feel you can call yourself small and boutique? But we always try to take a look at what this application offers. It might be different than someplace else in the city or someplace nearby. And it rang out in my head that you presented this as small and boutique. I want to know more about that.
Yeah, I think it's because of our sort of brand, as you mentioned. You're absolutely correct. We are looking to be sort of the holistic wellness approach, and targeting folks that are using cannabis as a complement to their fitness routines, a complement to their other activities that are sort of health and wellness focused, yoga, meditation. Jack can speak a little bit more on his personal experience, but he sees this really medicinally as a helpful to those who have been on opiates and had opiate addiction. And so we really think this is less of a Macy's or a Nordstrom and more of a local mom and pop style boutique.
establishment. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions before we turn to public testimony? Seeing none, again, public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes. Please identify yourself. We will begin with elected officials or their representatives. I do see that Councillor Edwards is present. Councillor Edwards?
Hi again. Thank you so much for your hard work. I know it's a long day. So I just want to go through the reasons why I support Resilient Remedies and have, I think, initially supported them last year, and they're now coming up for their first hearing and presenting themselves. Along with the fact that the biggest proponent or reason is because that they are locally owned. I've been public about my support for local ownership. I took out an op-ed in the Commonwealth magazine specifically on this industry and the stigma and the prejudices and the I think the headwinds that any person trying to open up an entity in this is going to have to come with trust, with character, and with people in the neighborhood knowing and having some sort of familiarity. And I found that when that person, whether they're already open, have a liquor store, or whether there's someone from the neighborhood, it does change the conversation. The stigma is still unfortunately there. This is a perfectly fine legal entity. This is a perfectly fine legal product, but many people don't trust it. And oftentimes it's because of corporations coming from out of town to come in to basically show up randomly and just make money. And that's not what we have here with Resilient Remedies. You have a local person who is running this entity, and you have local people who are part of the investment structure. Again, this is before Resilient Remedies even had their application in. I had written that op-ed, and I've supported consistently my local residents over other residents and other entities consistently, either been neutral if they're corporate or in opposition. But when it comes to people locally living in East Boston, Charlestown, well, we haven't had anyone from the North End yet. I have stood by the local owner, even in cases where the community may have opposed them or had expressed certain concerns. I said, I believe that this is going to happen. It's happening in our neighborhoods. And I think it's really important when it's happening from a local person. The other, one of the other pillars is the fact that there has been genuine and honest community support. Again, I represent the community and their voice, and the support has been somewhat just based off personal, that they like the person, which is nice, but not as relevant as to the fact that they liked it smaller, and they felt like, okay, fine, if we're going to be having this, because there are a lot of people who still don't want this, but they're willing to try. If the size that it's coming in is something that they're willing to work with. So I will say that the community support has been something that's also impacted my decision as well, because it's genuine, it's consistent, it's diverse, it's from throughout all of Charlestown, and it's overwhelmingly from Charlestown, those who would be impacted by it. So I just wanted to note that. Other things that have, there have been some concerns that I've seen that they've addressed. There were some people in opposition who did come to me and said that they were concerned about the safety concerns. They were living right near or approximate to the building, and the willingness of the proponent, when I got on to talk to them about those concerns, the willingness of the proponent to meet with, talk with, and analyze and change whatever security layout, depending on how that abutter wanted. I thought that was a good sign of their willingness to work with the community and to change what their entity looked like or how it operated in order to make someone feel comfortable with their new business coming in. I also wanted to note, I do think that a lot of experience matters in opening up a new business, period, but also opening up this kind of business, this kind of vice. Experience matters. So the team I've gotten to know has experience in opening up other businesses and being part of the development process and going through licensing and all different facets. It was specifically to Jack Kelly, his experience, his life experience. And I think we talked about safety and the impact on kids. I have been honored to sit in the room where he exposed what he has gone through, what he has done to himself, his own recovery path. And I'm sorry, that experience and that story does impact me, but it also impacts I believe his true vision to not want anyone to get on that path or to be ever in an addictive mindset. And I truly believe that he is entering in this with the goal of helping people heal, because so many of his generation, my generation, have not been able to. And experience does matter. He also owned his own business. He's written a book, and those things do matter in terms of how he has come forward. And I know, writing a book may not seem like a huge deal, but he owned the business to write the book and has been organizing around that as well. So I bring that up because his story matters. I also want to bring up the fact that I approached him about diversity and my concerns about this industry being too white, and also how is he genuinely going to deal with that. And he mentioned the pipelines that Joyce, or I think it was Joyce had mentioned, which included the CRA and the people who live in the housing development, which is actually, I think, a wonderful pipeline, working with the Boston community, the community college, Bunker Hill, community college, and also the Suffolk County corrections, and making sure that people who were victims in some cases of the war on drugs, and people in general who are dealing with the prolonged issues of segregation, of racism, of classism, have pipelines to these good jobs. That was very important for me. I also wanted to note, good jobs do matter. I am a member of the UAW. I'm a proponent of workers' rights. I'm fighting for workers' rights consistently and organizing. The fact that their starting salaries are at about $18 an hour does mean something. I also think that their willingness to train, mentor, and also have a retirement program is also important for me, and how you treat your workers. I want to see pathways to management. I want to see pathways to ownership as well. And for me, those are community benefits and impacts on the community that are direct, are clear, are absolutely manageable, of an entity that it seems more obtainable than, say, a housing fund at this point. So these are lining up all of these different things, and the fact that the community support is overwhelming, and this is locally owned, and that has been a consistent thing that I have fought for and believe that is key to having this industry work and grow in our neighborhoods. I stand in support of resilient remedies. Thank you.
Pat Fendel from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services is present. Pat?
Afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Patrick Fandel, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. To echo some of the councilors' points, there was a community meeting held on October 22nd, 2020 via WebEx events, which was attended by residents, community stakeholders, and representatives of the local elected officials. The applicant completed all statutory requirements for notification prior to this meeting and has maintained continued outreach to community stakeholders. The applicant has adequately demonstrated operational, traffic, and security plans for the site, and as such, the Mayor's Office would like to go on record in full support of this locally owned business model and ask that the applicant continue outreach to the neighborhood as they move forward through this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Karen Foley from City Councilor Anissa Sabi George's office, and would like to echo the sentiments of Councilor Edwards in the Mayor's office and support this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials? We will now move to public testimony. We will begin with the individuals who signed up online. Again, as a reminder, when you're called on, please unmute yourself. Please be prepared to state your full name and address. Your testimony will be limited to 2 minutes. The record will be kept open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. Calling Elizabeth and John Kelly.
Hi, my name is John Kelly, and this is my wife Elizabeth. We live at 460 Medford Street in Charlestown. We've been living here for more than 60 years. We're Jack's parents. We've watched them work very hard, his group, trying to do something good for the town with this business. And we've supported very much. We live about 10-minute walk from where the business is going to be at 31. And we have no problem with it. I don't have my neighbors that live around me that can sitting here right now, but there's been a lot of support to it.
They supported it also.
They supported it also. But you know, we're all for this business being started, and we really have a lot of trust and Jack and Dot and his whole team. And I'd like to thank Lydia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Calling Elaine Donovan. Please state your address for the record. Is Elaine?
Hi, I live at 85 Russell Street in Charlestown. I just want to say that I 100% support Jack. I've known Jack for years. We've sat on boards together. We were on the Charlestown Substance Abuse Coalition, which is now the Charlestown Coalition, for many years, which is where I met Jack. And I just want to say that I completely trust him. I trust in this business for Jack and his team because he is the local guy, because it is a palatable size for this 1 square mile. So it's going to be a 1,000 square feet. There's going to be just a small amount of business there. It's, this is new to this whole city, but most importantly to this 1 square mile, we'd like to tread lightly and let's start out slowly with this. I think Jack's the best person. I trust him completely. He's got integrity. He's one of 4 generations in our community living here right now. He's the guy we can get a hold of. If we have any questions or concerns, he's available to us. So by far, I appreciate this and I support him 100%. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Sean Boyle. Please state your address for the record.
Hi, I'm Sean. I live at 39A Tibbetstown Way, Charlestown, Mass. I also own Baby Boyle Bouquets, LLC, which is located at the Charlestown Working Theater, 442 Bunker Hill Street in Charlestown. I just want to say I support Jack. There was 3 people in Charlestown that have actually helped me build this business when it's just started this year. It's a startup, and he was actually one of them. Again, I'm also in recovery. When I was getting high and stuff, he was one of the people to always help me. Also being just like a person of color and gay in Charlestown, it was very hard growing up. While he was the liaison, he has always supported any of my endeavors in Charlestown as a teenager and as a young adult. And again, this year too, coming back to Charlestown, moving back, being 4 years sober, he has been absolutely helpful to someone who is like me, a person of color, gay, and just trying to start their own businesses in Charlestown. And he just walks the talk. I know he has a good soul, and I know he's gonna benefit the community. He's been at every single event that we've put on. He's been at the May Day Market. He's been at every turning around event. He's outreach to people in recovery about what he's doing and the business he wants to operate with, and people just know about him in the community. And I think that Charlestown needs, if we're going to have this weed shop, they need someone that's going to support the community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Sarah Coughlin. Please state your address for the record.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Coughlin. I live on Van Winkle Street in Dorchester, and I've worked in the Charlestown community for over 13 years, and I'm testifying today in support of Resilient Remedies. I'm a clinical social worker by education. I'm also a licensed drug and alcohol counselor, and my jobs over the course of the 13 years in Charlestown, I started at the police department working with juveniles that were court involved. I've worked in all of the public school systems in Charlestown, and then over at Mass General, where our coalition is now. And I've known Jack through every single one of those jobs. He's been a staple name in the community. Our Charlestown Coalition is representative of 75 different organizations within the community, including law enforcement, health professionals, youth, local business owners, media, faith-based organizations. Jack has been on the steering committee longer than I have, but he came and presented to our group in October of 2020, and the entire steering committee that was involved in that dialogue was in full support of Jack and his business. Our coalition focuses on social determinants of health, and so we do a lot of work around addiction. We do a lot of work around poverty, racism, violence. We have a very active youth group in the community. Jack goes above and beyond, and this is well before businesses. He is engaged in every sector in this community. He has participated and volunteered for over 10 years in all of our local school systems. He has done addiction prevention curriculums in the Warren Prescott, the Edwards Middle School, the Harvard Kent, and he's done work with us over at Charlestown High as well. We run an alternative to suspension program actually at Charlestown High School for chronic marijuana use, and he's been really helpful in that work as well. He when he wrote his book, he hired local staff from our Turn It Around program that are 80% are from the Bunker Hill Housing Development, which is the largest Bunker Hill housing development in the city. I think even in New England. And he has hired those kids. This is well before he had any intentions of needing anything from anyone. This is sort of who Jack is. He does a lot of stuff off the radar. He's always taken people to detox, getting rides, meeting with kids. He was very involved in our race dialogues that we've been doing for the last 10 months in the community. He's just been incredible to work with. And I think it's important as we think about the health of the community that we're looking at somebody who is doing.
That's over 2 minutes. You can submit any additional testimony in writing. Thank you very much. Calling Maggie Supri. Please state your address for the record.
Hi, Maggie Supri. I live in South Boston. I'm calling to oppose this applicant because I believe that the applicant's personal relationship with key decision makers in this process poses as a conflict of interest. And I think that it undermines the public's trust that these licenses can be issued equitably. I've attended all of these meetings since the fall, and R2 did not present a traffic study in their community outreach meeting in October. Heritage Club was rejected and required to start the application process over, in part because Heritage did not present a traffic study to the community. My question is just that will the same precedent was set there. So will R2 be required to return to the community, start the process over to present that study as Heritage was required to?
Ms. Supri, this is an independent board. I cannot predict how the members will vote. So if you have additional testimony, please feel free to continue.
Thank you.
I can chime in that we had always planned to do a traffic study. In fact, it was part of our community presentation that we were intending to do a traffic study. We worked very closely with Brian Callahan, the head of the Sullivan Square Neighborhood Association. I actually toured personally with him his streets and looked at and examined what the challenges were. I also talked to his neighbors about the same issues as I walked those streets. When we hired Stantec.
We're not going to get into a back and forth here with testimony and with the applicant. If you would like to submit something in writing to supplement the record, please feel free to, but we're going to kind of stick with public testimony. Calling Douglas McDonald. Is Douglas McDonald present? Calling Eileen Gorman. Is Eileen Gorman present?
Yep, I'm right here.
Please state your address.
How you doing?
Good.
It's 21 Tibbetstown Way, Charlestown, Mass. I'm just calling in support of Resilient Remedies. I've known Jackie for a long time. We've sat on multiple boards in Charlestown, and you know, looking over his proposal, I think it's probably the most beneficial for our town. I'm a mom of 4, and it's definitely something that you know, is more suitable to our town. You know, marijuana definitely made me concerned. But sorry, that last call just made me a little nervous. But yeah, he has a vested interest in our town, and I fully support his proposal. But that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Erica Walsh. Is Erica Walsh present? Just give me one moment. Those are all the individuals who signed up online. Let me see if there's anyone else who has raised their hand. Calling Brian Callahan. Please state your address for the record.
Yes, Brian Callahan, 17 Parker Street, Charlestown. Just briefly, I'd like to address a question raised by Commissioner Holmes. The difference between this proposal, number 31 Cambridge Street, on behalf of the Sullivan Square Residential Association, is that it's about 1/3 to 4/10 of a mile outside of the residential neighborhood. The traffic that we've talked about for years, the cut through traffic, is cutting through our community off 93 to avoid Sullivan Square. I assume the folks that are going down to 31 Cambridge Street will be going directly to Sullivan Square and not avoiding it. Most of the traffic in the morning and in the afternoon cuts through our community and takes a right to avoid Sullivan Square to go to Cambridge or to Somerville. Many of those vehicles are from New Hampshire. I assume, looking at the maps that we provided you, that 31 is further enough away inside the square so folks won't be driving through the residential streets to get there. That's why the consensus was to support it over the one at the bottom of our street, which is much larger. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just received a message from Erica Walsh has reconnected. Erica Walsh. Moving to Andrea Benetti. Please state your address for the record.
Hi, my name is Andrea Benetti and I'm on 10 Parker Street. And I just want to echo what Brian Callahan said. I mean, the main difference between this location and the one from Cambridge Street is that this is away from the residential neighborhoods. You typically have three types of people when you're commuting to the city. You have people who are going to take public transportation, people are going to park and then get on the train and drive, or people are going to drive all the way in and park in downtown and Back Bay. The problem with the Cambridge side location is those commuters on the way home will come off the 93 ramp and go to the Cambridge location. And by having this location, they're offering no parking. There is public parking. So people who are already commuting to the city for work anyways, they're going to be parked there. They're going to maybe stop on their way home and then, be off on their business. So this makes much more sense for our community. That is why I am in support of this location. And in regards to the traffic study, it was the residents who advocated for the traffic study because again, there would be so much cut through traffic, people coming off the 93, people going around Sullivan to go to that location. Whereas this location, it's already located away from our residential streets. And I did want to ask one question. I'm sorry, I know about this. It was stated that it'd be by appointment only at first, but is there a set operational hours set for this yet?
For this application, the request in terms of hours was Monday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Should this application be granted, any change to those hours would require a new public process and a hearing before the board.
Great, thank you. So that adds to my support because I believe the Heritage Club hours were going to be 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So I support this location. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other individuals who have not previously testified who wish to testify regarding this matter?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
I apologize. My name's Doug McDonald, lifelong resident in Charlestown, grew up in the housing development. I have a couple of comments. One, I take a little bit of offense to all these outsiders coming in here and telling us how the traffic is and how it isn't, and some of the other comments that were made about how we live in this community. So I sort of take offense to that. The other thing is, as far as this thing being political, I was against Lydia Edwards. I worked very hard to get Stephen Pasquintilli elected. So those comments about that, I think, are a little ridiculous. I just want to let you know that today I am a supporter. Also, Jack Kelly, I also helped him with his liaison job because I thought it'd be a great opportunity for a kid in the community, which I believe in. And I think Lydia's spoken to that in terms of someone who lives in the community, who understands the community. Also being a developer and a community activist involved in many meetings. I think it's important to have somebody from the community. I don't know the girl. Nikki sounds like a wonderful woman. The Supri family, wonderful people. The Kelly family, they're all generations, third, fourth generation people. Had many conversations with Jack, getting sober. I've been sober for 34 years. Jack's been an amazing advocate for the recovery community and also the mental health community, which a lot of people don't know about. And as far as the traffic, I talk to Brian Callahan all the time, who's a good friend of mine. It's a nightmare down there. And you know what? Sullivan Square, where that old Wesley's and the Celtic Tavern used to be on that corner, is a perfect place for walking. And there are 3 parking lots across the street there. And most of that traffic is just outside traffic that comes in and parks there. But I think in terms of the neighborhood, I think it's important for this board to take that into consideration going forward. The fact that they are going to be impacted. And they dumped that ramp down there years ago, and it's an absolute mess. So just want to go on record in support. I think Jack has shown, we've had many conversations about what he wants to do in this community. So.
2 minutes, you can submit additional testimony in writing. Are there any additional individuals who have not yet testified who wish to testify regarding this application?
Hi, sorry, my name's Erica Walsh. I had a little bit of issue with service, but I just wanted to speak on behalf of Jack and Resilient Remedies. Their preteen daughter. I'm aware of what Jack's proposing and bringing to the table, and I don't think anybody else would do it better than him. I know he's going to put back into Charlestown, and I think he has Charlestown and Boston's best interest at heart. Thank you.
Ms. Walsh, what is your address for the record?
Sorry, 98A Dunstable Street, Charlestown, Mass. 02129.
Thank you very much. Are there any other individuals who have not previously testified who wish to do so? Again, the record will be kept open until 5 p.m. on Tuesday. We will now return to see Chairwoman Joyce. Do you have any additional questions or comments?
I do have a comment and a question. My question is for Dot Joyce. You mentioned that you always intended to do a traffic study, but you didn't get a chance to finish that. Why didn't you do one?
We did. As part of our process, we always intended to do a traffic study, and we did it in collaboration with the neighborhood. When we talked to the neighborhood, we knew that it was an issue for them. We knew that traffic was going to be a concern. Stantec was chosen because Stantec actually has done a lot of work in that area. Ralph specifically has a lot of knowledge of the city's, as you can tell from his testimony, he actually is helping the city now with traffic demand management plans. We knew Ralph's work. We knew that he would be a good advocate for the community. And we offered to actually pay for Ralph to work with the Sullivan Square Neighborhood Association on mitigation strategies beyond our application.
Okay, and just a comment for general consumption. As I mentioned at the beginning of this hearing, and I took the time and asked Leslie to answer the questions, this agenda was not put together to choose one establishment in this neighborhood over the other. It's pure coincidence that we have 2 Charlestown locations on this agenda. We are looking at them independently and on their own, not in comparison to each other.
Thank you, Chairwoman Joyce. Do any of the other commissioners have any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you to the chairwoman, thank you to the commissioners, thank you to Jasmine Nguyen, who's our project manager, Chayla White with the Office of Economic Development, and thank you to everyone who attended to present and to testify. The board will take all of these matters under advisement. We will read.
Hello? Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you calling to testify?
Yes.
Please state your name.
I just had a quick
name and
my
address.
name is Mary Supri of South Boston. I'm just calling. So is there a traffic study already done by them or is there not?
Well, they've testified there is, and that each member of the commission will review the record and will review whatever has been submitted.
Okay, and I have one other question. Jack Kelly is 51% owner of this business, is that correct?
Ma'am, I don't have that in front of me, but everything has been disclosed to the board. He is also a non-equity applicant.
Right, I was just not understanding why he hasn't spoke one word if he's going to be the owner of this license. I'm a little confused, especially where Nikki, John from the other business was grilled.
Thanks again, ma'am. All of that will be taken into consideration by the board. Thank you very much. We appreciate everyone's testimony. Have a good day.
Okay, I appreciate yours. Thank you.